This is the Equity Committee meeting, and today's date, September 30th, 2021, 6 o'clock p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Could I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Patterson?
Present.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mrs. Walker?
Present.
Mrs. Pender?
Present.
Mr. Browning?
Present.
All members are here. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. However, it was a short turnaround, so the minutes are not available for tonight. We'll get them on the next time. Looking at the agenda tonight, we are going to start out with the Equity Committee Compliance Report Card. Now, this report card is the medium that has been developed and used to grade the artifacts provided by the district to determine if there is progress being made. Is there a motion to use this report card to monitor and identify if these sections are in compliance for unitary status?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. We have a deadline to have our report in. I think it's less than a month. We have some business to do. So we're voting on the data tonight, and we won't have much time or any time to see any more presentations or to hear. Comments may be made after we've concluded, and we wanted everyone to provide comment on the committee. If you have or like whichever documents you might have with you when you get ready to say your comment. I believe we'll see some progress towards compliance in some areas, and others will need much more work. It's just my observation before we get started. Now, our goal is to see if we're meeting unitary status and if we have compliance towards that. I was thinking about that on the way here, committee members, and I'm thinking, we've probably got a lot of work because it's going to take some time. You cannot pay your mortgage for 40 years and turn around and make one payment and satisfy the bank. So we got a lot of time to put in and work. And I'd like to thank the district staff for the work that they've been putting into. Now, to get a historical look, I'm going to call a guest, former chairman, Ms. Green, to come up and give us a quick overview of the report card, how it came to be in the process used before. She'll also be able to assist us as we move through the process since it is our first time doing this portion. Marshawn Green, if you could take a space there, or we'll make a space for you somewhere. She's the foreman who helped draft this report card, or the former chairman. Do you have a copy, or do you want my folder?
Of the report card? Of the report card?
Yes.
Oh, I have a copy.
All right.
Yeah, I have a So I see the yellow highlighting, so you all are coming from the draft that Chris added comments to. So basically, initially I created the report card by going to the joint plan and also the 2019 recommendations and just putting them under the various sections so that we could just go through, look to see if that information was provided to us under recommendations and guidelines, and if it was, then we checked it off. If it wasn't, then that was something that we would carry over to our recommendations for the following year. If all items were checked, then we would say, okay, this area has been complied with, and then we would go on to the next. If they weren't checked, then we would put no compliance, and then we would give our recommendations. Even if you find compliance, you're welcome to give like recommendations if you feel like there's other things that could be done to enhance what the district is already doing. The yellow portion, Chris went back through the joint plan and he added things that he thought was not included already in what I had drafted. So some of them may seem redundant. And if they are redundant, the higher standard supersedes the lower standard, because it's basically us enhancing what the joint plan has already established. Now, with the joint plan, it was basically the bare minimum, and in the joint plan language, it tells you all that you have the authority to make recommendations, because the courts expected for this committee basically to not only monitor, but to give guidance, right? So like to assist the district in figuring out how they'll comply with this desegregation order. And so you all are basically the jury. So the letter of the law is the deseg and the joint plan and the order, and you look at the evidence, which is the data that's provided to you. You are the jury that looks to see if the facts and the law are aligning, and if they are, then it's compliance. If it's not, then you will put no compliance. But then you also can give a narrative of, even if there's no compliance, if you feel like, okay, the district is doing a good job in this area, or you see some improvement, you could put that in your notes, you know, to the board, to the NAACP, that, you know, we see that this, you know, there's no compliance. However, we notice that the district has done this, this, and this. Or if you feel like there should be some improvements, you could also put that. It really just helps both parties understand what you all have seen, and they can further their discussions, and the district can further their efforts on trying to meet the DSEG.
Any questions for Ms. Green right now? Looks like it might be a short night then. Section 2, mentoring. Determining if the school district of Indian River County is providing a welcoming, inclusive, and supportive environment for African American teachers based on the mentoring plans and documentation provided. Determine if mentoring plans are tailored to meet the needs of each new African American teacher. Also, if there is a professional development council rep at each school. Use those determinations listed under 2019 recommendations, monitoring as the guidance to determine if compliance is met. So we've got provide a plan that specifically addresses mentoring African American teachers and instructional staff. Strategies used to ensure that mentors are culturally competent and open to diversity present. Documentation showing that African American teacher mentoring pairing is active and effective. Identifiable increases in more African American mentors present. Documentation that criteria for mentors are widely publicized by the principals and recommend teachers. Incentives such as comp time in exchange for serving as a mentor. Retired African American educators being used as informal mentors. Proof of discussion of new teacher mentoring program during new teacher orientation conference. Proof of African American teachers in years 1 through 3 of teaching career in Indian River enrolled in new teacher mentoring program. Proof of each new African American teacher being assigned a mentor at their school. Proof that a new teacher mentoring program tailored to meet individual needs of African American teachers.
So at this time, like if you all have your mentoring data, like have you reviewed the mentoring data?
Yes, we've reviewed that data. We had Mrs. Christofali do several presentations. Even at the last meeting, she gave data as far as where we were with African-American teachers being hired. She did speak on the mentoring process. I think Ms. Beckham, who works with that directly, could definitely give us more background on that as well.
Could you speak more into the mic, please?
Do I need to repeat all of that? So I was saying that Ms. Christofali has given several presentations on the hiring process, the strategies and practices rather, that have been implemented as far as the hiring process. And she's also given us data as far as the number of African American teachers that have been hired and sustained. So we have reviewed that data extensively. And we should have it. We should have those presentations, correct?
So
And the data from those printouts, right? Or we can Can we ask her?
That data would go under recruitment of
Recruitment, yeah,
African-American
yeah.
And
teachers.
as far as the mentoring data, we have artifacts that have been presented, I believe, at the last 2 meetings, as far as the mentoring, the practices, how new teachers do have a mentor. All of the things that are mentioned here were included in that last report, and there were artifacts to support that.
So
Did
you
you have a
all
chance to review
received
that?
And you
Information
recall-
on what nuances that for African-American teachers, like what struggles they face,
Yeah,
and then
the-
the strategies?
Yep, there were surveys in there that were included from African-American teachers. There was a whole bunch of artifacts that I, that I reviewed. So maybe we do need time to, and I suggested maybe looking at a portion at a time, like taking on one section at a time, because it is a lot of data. So if we, look at every single section, it will be very difficult for us to, again, look at those artifacts, look at the data, and really be able to make a sound decision. So I think it would behoove us to take it section by section, to make certain, maybe 2 sections at a meeting, but, there was a lot of data.
You all have a month,
Yeah.
and
But
I
I'm
would
just saying-
interject that, I don't know, I went on the website and I've listened in on all the meetings that I wasn't personally involved in, and I have concerns because I don't see the data. I don't see all of this. My concerns, if you went on the website, you need a treasure chest map to find this stuff, and it's incomplete, it's not comprehensive. I'd like, for instance, identify increases in more African-American mentors present. I haven't seen any paperwork that says this is the mentoring program, this is the people, even if you retract the names. I haven't seen any documentation that shows that teacher A, B, C, and D was mentored.
Yeah,
That there was a specific program set up for that individual. And I think going through the data, if it's, I've been going through, my brain is overworked at trying to establish a good feeling. And in mentoring, and even had a situation where a young lady, 2 young ladies who had the mentors bailed out on them because the mentors didn't understand their culture, didn't understand them as African Americans, was signifying and gossiping about their private information. So I have a problem with you just throw something out there and say, okay, we have data. Data based on what? I haven't seen it. I've looked for it. This past week, like I say, trying to go on the website, you got stuff over here, you got stuff over there, you got stuff around the corner, and trying to get a comprehensive look at this so-called data is problematic. But what we've been presented with, I haven't seen it. That's me personally.
well, when we had our discussion, we went back and forth because Chris felt like the mentoring program, period, was enough to say that there was a mentoring program.
Yeah.
But the rest of us were like, it's different, right? Because if you're in an environment where you're the minority, there are particular challenges that you face that the majority do not face. So with the mentoring program, we were asking for something that addresses those nuances. Like, okay, so how are you addressing, basically the culture shock when people get here? Because when a black person comes here, let's be honest, it's like, okay, well, this is weird, and really just addressing that. So I think right now you all just have to decide with what you've received, because you have less than really a month to actually present with what you received. Do you feel that there's compliance? If you're not completely convinced, then you err on the side of no compliance, and then you just make your recommendations. You don't have to make recommendations today, but you do have to kind of figure out where you are with compliance so that you all can be prepared, because you have to have your presentation done and have presented by the first week in November.
This is true.
Yeah,
This is true.
I apologize if I was looking crazy kind of when you said, we are going through section by section, and it may take us till 11, whatever it might take. But when I said at the beginning, we do have a limited amount of time.
Right.
From what we have seen, which is why I asked in the email to review the section and review what you've seen. And everybody will may have an opinion. So, one thing that I know we talked about and discussed when we were talking about mentoring, I think the retired African-American educators being used as mentors was something that the district felt like was not acceptable and didn't want to use. So I don't know how you feel about that portion
See,
right there, but that, yes, ma'am.
That's back to my original question about that before. Had they really tried to reach out to the retired African-American teachers as mentors? You know, I asked that question a couple of meetings ago.
And then another thing, I have not seen the anything by the principals, or where it says documentation that criteria for mentors widely publicized by the principals. Maybe that piece was, did anybody see, get that? Do you recall that portion?
Like I said, there were pages and pages of artifacts. I can't speak to whether it was there or not. My memory, I wish it was that good, but it's not. And unfortunately, I have 4 of these binders, friends, 4. I picked up the wrong binder, so I do not have the one with the copies of the artifacts and the data to support this section. So.
Okay. I'm not going to laugh at you for bringing the wrong portion, because I had my wrong thing, which is why I have here. I printed off a different one.
Chairman Browning, would it be appropriate for Ms. Beckham or Ms. Cummings or anyone in that department to answer the questions that you're uncertain of, if they're the ones that oversee the program?
Not just yet.
Okay.
Not just yet. I think I said at the beginning, we may address comments a little later. We want to get through some of these without being held up through the portion. And I apologize for the confusion when Ms. Davis sent the link out to about 54 people. I didn't know what it was. And apparently it was so people could comment in. Maybe, I'm not sure. But no, cut that out. We have to move on. There's a lot of heavy lifting to do. So if you'd like to make that note, and then we can get to them in a few. The plan that specifically addresses mentoring African-American teachers and instructional staff. Now, I know they've had some diversity training. There are some mentors.
Chair?
And we talk. Yes.
Should I dismiss staff and have them go home?
What?
Should I dismiss staff and have them go home?
If you'd like to.
Okay. Staff, you can go home. So if you can just all go home. This committee has been provided how much documentation? If you were going to make a recommendation of noncompliance, tell us what's missing. Tell us what wasn't provided. We have given you all of the information. All of the information. What specifically
Okay,
was
so
not,
first
I'm
off,
sorry,
you're out
I
of
have,
order.
Hold on.
he gave me the chair.
He's out of order.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't have the chair. I don't have the floor. I thought the chair allowed me to speak, therefore I had the floor.
I certainly want to hear what you have to say. You have,
chair and
would you
I
like
have-
another minute? Or how much time do you need?
I don't think I need much time at all.
Okay.
I think we laid out documentation to be reviewed over the course of this year. Staff has made themselves available. A great deal of work has been done. Documentation has been provided, 100% aligned to the joint plan. So specifically, if a recommendation of noncompliance, what isn't missing? We've provided the information. So I'm just curious as to the path in which we're taking and how we're reviewing the documentation that has been provided. That is the question that I have. I don't see where we're actually citing the information that has been provided or has not been provided. So that is the dilemma that I have. So the volume of work that staff has put in has been tremendous. The effort that they has been put in is tremendous. And we need to honor that work, and we need to take the time to review section by section by section, and looking at the information that was provided, and make those recommendations based on what was provided, what was or wasn't done. That's-
Thank you.
Thank you.
May I speak?
We are,
You had me drive over here. May I speak?
go
Thank you.
ahead.
So, we were in the same spot last year. The minute that we decided that we were going through compliance, there was a ton of documents wanting to be given to us at that time. And due to time constraints, we would not have been able to get through it. If you all have reviewed the documents and you find under these recommendations that they have been fulfilled, then it is compliance. But you all have reviewed documents and some of you don't remember seeing them, some of you remember and feel. You have an obligation to the courts. You have an obligation to the courts. It does, I mean, you can have a great presentation, but at the end of the day, it's about the data and applying the data that you've received and the facts to what the standard is for the courts. And your first obligation is to the children. And throughout this time, if you all aren't reviewing it and recommending, but also looking at this, like there are things you all have reviewed it. So was there a plan that specifically addressed mentoring African-American teachers and instructional staff? Was strategy used to ensure that mentors are culturally competent and open to diversity present? Have you all seen that? Now, no one is negating that staff is not doing the job and really working hard. That's not what it's about. You know, it's not about that. It's not about if we like the district, if you don't like the district. You all are to be objective and impartial and look at what the data is providing and if the standard has been met or not. Because you all have an obligation to the students, the African-American students of this. So with the mentoring, also to the African-American teachers. So with the mentoring, there may be a mentoring plan in place, but have you seen the specific nuances? And have they also given you strategies, showed you strategies that they address that?
Yes.
And if you haven't, so okay, so then everyone vote, right? So then you call for a vote and see all in favor of compliance
So,
or not.
One of the
Okay,
challenges
so-
that I have, honestly, is because a lot of it, Dr. Moore, completely acknowledging all the work that goes into it. You know, we're a part of that work. And we do work really, really hard every single day for all of our students. One of the things I think is difficult, is not so much that the information doesn't exist, but that the format in which it's been received and presented. So Ms. Christofoli was here, and she's given us a lot of information, but it's been over about 4 months. And I think that it would have been easier for us if we used the report card in the beginning and were able to kind of check along as we receive the information, because it's a little bit difficult now if it's not front of mind whether or not you received it. I think that, for example, I think the one that sticks out a lot is the part about the cultural competency piece. And I'm having trouble, and Dr. Moore, if you want to speak to that, or please ask Ms. Christopher to come back and just speak to what we received as far as the cultural competency and making sure, and I've talked with Terry Beckham, I know she was trying to do some of that work. I'm not sure what the progress was with it. But I think that if we could just, again, there's been a lot, and some of it has been a long time.
So just about speaking to, it's more about evidence, right? So you can get up and present, but what have you given us to show us that this has happened? And that's where I think we also get confused too, because you get a presentation and folks tell you, it's not about you telling me, it's about you showing me with evidence. Because
So-
you are making evidence, database
Here's
decisions.
my frustration, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I've been sitting in this chair, and we have requested a litany of things as far as data, right? Allied to all of these sections. And our first dilemma was, it's too much at one time, and that's when I suggested months ago that we chunk this process. Everything that we asked for, we got. So then we got into the discussions of the formatting of what we got. So we went down a rabbit hole. We had the data. We started to discuss the formatting, like I said, and things that they contribute to, but they weren't the big picture. So, as I said before, when we came, I think it was in our June meeting, I may be wrong, but correct me if I am, in our June meeting, I studied that data. I looked at those artifacts, and I came prepared to this meeting to make recommendations. It was suggested at that point, because Dr. Bristol was not here, that we were not in a position to do that. I said I looked at this information on my time, not paid, so I was prepared to make recommendations, and I did that night. We went through each section, and we were literally going through. First, we said we were going to check off the boxes, and then we said it wasn't as simple as checking off boxes, that we needed time to look over the data. We've had time to look over the data.
So I think
And
you're
which is-
absolutely right. I agree that we've had a lot of time.
And I'm not pointing fingers or anything like that, but as you said, this is time sensitive.
It is.
And if we're sitting here now, like, we could have done this in June.
But what I'm saying is what Mershawn is saying. I understand completely. We've all spent a lot of time here. I think that even for those of us sitting here, as well as the community, can't tell you how many people reach out to us and say, get on with it. And so we need to get on with it. I feel like tonight, we're trying to get on with it. The challenge is, do we have evidence?
Well,
And that's the biggest thing. So I think that we have to show the documentation. Otherwise, we can't.
So, and I don't mean to interrupt.
Sure.
So then let's end it now, because it's no point, if we don't have the data in front of us, and that's what we're saying, and we're not ready to make a decision, then what's the point of us continuing to sit here, and what are we discussing if we're saying we don't have the data, or we're not comfortable enough to do that? Let's come back with all of the artifacts, with all of the data that is pertinent to each section, and make a decision.
I
So I
believe
think
our
that-
last meeting was
think
on the
that we need
16th.
to
It's the 30th.
Identify what's missing, if that's the
I'm
case.
sorry?
Don't we need to identify what's missing, if that's the case? So if we leave right now, if we dismiss, we're going to come right back and then still be trying to analyze this
Hold on.
document and ask for what we
Please,
need.
I've got a few issues.
Sure.
Our last meeting was on the 16th. It was the very same agenda, the very same items. And it's the same tonight. And I asked everyone to be prepared, look at their data, bring whatever they needed to bring. That's one problem that I have. The other problem is the elephant in the room, which is why we are here today. Somebody tell me if there has ever been a meeting with a group of white folks that this would have happened tonight. Dr. Moore, I am offended of what just happened tonight. We just barely got in here in 15 minutes, and I would have easily given you the table, and you jumped up there and said, should I send my staff home? I don't think you would have done that, or the chair would have done that to those 5 school board members up there. This is why we have a desegregation order in this county. Because it's disrespectful. I don't know about to you, but to my black face, it's disrespectful. And if you don't mind, I think I might want to take a 2 or 3 minute recess, because it was it's like, who are these people sitting here? No respect to the people around this county, around this table. Like it doesn't matter. We're sitting here in a voluntary role, and let me be crystal clear. Sir, you just got here. We've been living this for 40 years or more. You came in with your staff, you brought your people, and now you're going to correct everything and tell us how to do it.
Tell you how to monitor him, because keep in mind that you all are monitoring him.
Could you give me a few more seconds, please?
Yes.
I really don't think you would have done a group of white folks like that. I think it was extremely disrespectful.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
I am appalled. I tried to be low-key. I wrote to myself, 53 years of civil rights violation, and y'all gonna do a dog and pony show with me? I live this. I was told in the past 2 weeks, like I told you, trying to go on the website, you got this over here, that over there. It's like You need a treasure chest map to find this documentation that I wanted to make sure that I had. So I don't know why other people didn't do the same thing. I did something that I learned. In these items, you can have 11 items under mentoring. I went through them while I sat here listening to all of this garbage. Now, go through them, I only find a 7 and a partial out of 11 that I know where you went anywhere near it. There's a facade. I told y'all a long time ago, these 2 African-American teachers who were afraid of their jobs came to me and told me the mentoring program was a joke because they had these 2 white females mentoring them who were signifying about their personal business. And if you don't know what signifying is, it's gossip. It means talking people personal information. But they were scared to come forward for fear of retaliation. So I'm not going to sit here. We're not a cheerleading squad. We are supposed to rate compliance, as you said, Mr. Chairman. But 53 years of civil rights violation for the African-American students, teachers, and administrators of this county, and we're going to sit here and get disrespected. You know, woo, it's a rough one.
7 areas we have to get through tonight. 7. We were talking for barely 15 minutes. And interrupted. I almost feel like one of those school board meetings that's on Fox News and these other places where it just gets totally where you have to have the police come in. We don't have those, but we didn't have a chance to discuss yet. You had your opinion, you had yours, I was saying something, you were guiding us through the process. So the question is, do we continue having this discussion? I think we should. And then we can come back if there is some more information that the district can provide.
So y'all
I'm sorry.
You're not gonna make the deadline. I'm just gonna be honest. Like, at some point, you have to have a cutoff and do your vote, or you're not gonna make your deadline. Because you have to present by the first week. And you have to schedule the meeting with the board and the NAACP.
And that's according to that court document, right?
Joint plan. Do you have any areas where you all have looked at it, you're clear, and you can vote on?
Like I said, we were in that position in June.
In my
I
opinion.
actually we went through during that meeting, and myself, I think there were about 7, I don't even know because now they're gone. I can't even reference that. But there were about, I would say, 8 to 9 recommendations that night that were
Because see,
made.
we basically took notes, we went through the information, we took notes, and then when it was time for compliance, everybody went back through their notes and said, okay, well,
Is it
I
or
had
isn't
this,
it?
this, and this on.
And it's a
areas.
protocol that you don't just arbitrarily determine in the middle of the process when you're going to do the report card. There's a protocol. This was not started yesterday.
Right.
I was in the courthouse in Miami, Florida when this was put together. So I know how it goes. It is cut and dried how the process flows. We are following protocol, which has gone on the previous years, and all of a sudden we're going to change it?
What protocol are we trying?
How we doing what we're doing now when it comes time to do the report card, just what we're doing now.
So I'm not understanding why, like, there is such contention when it comes to this anyway, right? Because if all of these aren't complied with, then there's still no unitary status. And it's for sure that under achievement, there's no unitary status because there's a gap. If there's a gap, racially identifiable schools, then there's no unitary status. That's the first one. Then transportation, if you all haven't been provided with the information to show that, African-American parents basically have an option for a bus but are choosing to have their kids bused in transportation, there would be no compliance, you know? So like there's different areas that without thought, you know, representation of African-American teachers, you know, there's no compliance. Like there's areas that is no compliance, so.
It's cut and dry. as you
Right,
said.
so
It
it's-
sh- It
yeah,
should not be.
yeah.
So I am prepared to do that.
Yeah.
However, not everyone is prepared to do that.
Yeah.
And so we're at an impasse. And it's not because we haven't looked at the data, right? Like you said, we've had access to it, right? We've had access to those artifacts. If not everyone is on the same page to do that, then that's where we have the problem.
So then you all vote on the section
We
that
don't
you
have
are
a problem.
prepared.
We have difference of opinions, which you do with your vote.
So, yes, so we're looking at this section, and if you feel like you've seen more than enough or sufficiency, then you're going to say, I think it's been compliance, I think we're making progress, and everything is moving forward. And then we'll go to the next section.
So I will be the first to say that in the area of mentoring, I feel after, to the best of my recollection with the artifacts and the information that I have seen, that we are indeed making progress there. Are we there yet? Absolutely not. But have we made substantial progress? Absolutely. So if we want to be as, you know, if you want to literally check off boxes, then let's check off boxes. But I will speak to that and say that, yes, I am fully prepared to say that we have made substantial progress in that area.
So is that
It's a
compliance?
I would
or no
think that it's compliant. I would think that, I would say that based on the data and the evidence, in the matter of surveys and quantitative data as well, that they have been compliant. Like I said, it may not, I don't know, again, compliant to me may not be what it is to Mr.
Mr. Brown?
Brown.
Yes.
He may want every single box checked off. That's where we get into, we need some clarity there. Is it a percentage of the boxes? Is it all the boxes? What are we, what do you deem to be
It's going to be each
compliant?
individual's feel.
I would say.
So because you are a body, it would be what the majority of the group, you know, so by you all voting and agreeing to this being the rubric, then you would be going by this.
So, and I think, and you're also asking, do all the boxes have to be checked in order for it to be compliant? Or can it be the majority of the boxes checked?
And so when we voted, right, we voted for all of them. Me, you, Ms. Pender, Sanders, and, no, no,
Chris.
Chris, yeah.
And then too, to speak to, not to invalidate the experiences of those two African-American teachers, but does that speak for the majority? Like I can be presented with the same, in the same environment, the same everything, right? It's completely the same. There are no variables, right? But my experience may be different than yours. But does it make the practice or whatever I was engaged, does it make it wrong? Does it make it not effective?
I think for that, it's more so like, is there a system in place
Yes.
for those things when those
Yes.
things happen, right? And that's what we were more concerned with, was like not just the mentoring program, but like, is there a system in place that when teachers are experiencing certain things, this is happening? Do you have situational things that you could share with us that you all have experienced and then remedy? Like, that's what we were looking for. We were looking for like, okay, where are the trainings that you're providing to ensure that those who you are pairing, because we also said that it doesn't have to be a black teacher with a black mentor, but what we want is if you're preparing a white teacher or Hispanic teacher with a black mentee, that they are receiving trainings to be equipped,
Yes.
you know, with whatever situations that they bring. So like, those are the things that like you look for. And I just want to make it clear, like, this committee is not here to be like gotcha to the district. We are basically here just to make sure that it's an equitable environment, because that's what the 1964 Civil Rights Act was about, ensuring that the environment is equitable. Because even if we're hiring African-American teachers, if we're not changing the culture and putting systems in place to ensure that they are comfortable and feel included, then they're not going to stay. And we'll hire 30% and be back to 5% in a year or two. So that's really, you know, what we're here for, like what you all are here for. And like you and Ms. Walker have a special place, and even Ms. Pender, because you all have been teachers, you know, so you all understand going into an environment, you know, even Mr. Browning, so you all know that, and you all will have better recommendations probably than we had when it comes to like mentoring and instruction and retention.
Okay, here's a question. I feel like significant progress has been made. There are some things here that I've not seen. So I think it needs to be defined too, as in compliance. Compliance, I don't think is a one-time thing. I think it's over time. You can't go, if we say we're in compliance here, today, 3 years of compliance would be unitary status in that one area, or is it compliance here, and then if it fails off next year, we're still not in compliance. So, did I just confuse somebody, or is that,
No.
that makes sense?
My brain is probably, okay.
Because
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
one of
sir.
the things, if you go to the third box,
Yes,
documentation showing that African-American teachers mentoring pairing is active and effective. I looked, because this thing with those two teachers has been bugging me because I brought it up several times. I found nothing where these two teachers could have gone to anybody and remedied their situation. They are suffering in silence because they are afraid of their jobs. So number 3 is a no.
Well, you have Mr.
Okay.
Seymour there that deals with.
No.
Wait,
I'm
wait,
not
wait.
talking about that. I'm saying,
But but Marshawn
I
just
was
said, Ms.
talking,
Green
I was
just
trying
said,
to
Mr.
get a
Brown.
point across.
I was speaking and then you
No,
interrupted me.
I came after Mr.
So-
Browning.
okay, can I reclaim the chair? I'll reclaim the mic.
Please do.
All right, I want to hear from Dr. Jones, please. Were you about to say something? Okay, so Mr. Brown, if I could ask you to, if that's an area of concern for you, could you please mark that area?
I've marked mine. I'm ready to go.
Okay, all right, because you know of a specific example where you say that people were not able to go anywhere.
No.
And I understand, I heard you that Mr. Seymour is there, but apparently they didn't have a chance to see Mr. Seymour.
Well, and then
And-
I
and-
also know some teachers that saw Mr. Seymour, and I think they just ended up transferring from the school.
I know several also.
So I'm well aware of that scenario, and Mr. Seymour and I have had that conversation. That, and I won't put that on Mr. Seymour's conduct or conversation. I think it was the environment probably became too much for them, which comes back to the environment needs some help. And that's, I guess, saying it in an easy way.
So what does that fall under? Is that mentoring? Is that hiring and retention? Like, what would that fall under?
Look in the bold where it says Section 2 mentoring, the very top. Determine if the school district of Indian River County is providing a welcoming, inclusive, and supportive environment for African-American teachers based on mentoring plans and documentation provided. So in that instance, that environment was not welcoming to them. And we're not talking about in one place, okay, you're welcome at Osceola Magnet School, because if black teachers are unwelcome at Bistro Middle School, it's a problem. So even though progress has been made, I think that would be an issue. Dr. Moore, you look like you have something to say.
I don't want to take you off topic, so.
I would like to say something. Number 5, documentation on the criteria for mentors widely publicized by principals and recommended teachers. There's another gap, that if the principals are aware, then why are these two teachers afraid to say something and afraid of their jobs if the principal is supposed to be aware of this, and it's a policy and procedure that they should be upholding for the mentoring of these teachers, but the teachers are afraid to go to the principal for retaliation? That is problematic. This is in real time. This is not a storybook. These people have a job, and it's almost in a hostile work environment because they are afraid if they speak out, they won't have a job. So if number 5 that says that documentation that the criteria for mentors widely publicized by the principals, Something is missing. No, that's a no. And it may be problematic at other schools that people are not talking about. But we have a clear issue where certain aspects of this are not being done. So do we just do piece of it? After 53 years of civil rights violations, do we do a little bit of piece and say, oh, that's all right? That's all they deserve? I don't think so.
Okay.
Or do we forsake all the work that, the efforts that are being made to get
What
there?
efforts? A dog and pony show, a facade,
I
a
think-
figment of imagination? I'm going to say, show me the beef. I said it in the last meeting. This is the beef. This is where we can go through these 11 items and chronologically say which of them are being addressed in their totality, not piecemeal, but in their totality.
Right, and that.
And they're not.
And the evidence was in the artifacts.
No, they weren't. I
They
looked.
were, I saw them.
I looked.
They were printed out in front of us. They were there.
Okay.
So we can speak to, I agree with you on those 2 points, that those things are not evident. However, there are many that are. So I just want to, can we please just go down, and I don't care if it's a yea or a nay on each box. Can we just say yes or no on a box?
That's where I was.
Like, let's just get it done.
And then if there are 2 boxes or 1 box that has no, then,
Then the majority rules, and we can say that there is progress. I mean,
Progress is
I
not
mean, I don't
I-
know,
I
what's
think
the verbiage? What
I
is it
would-
that we're looking
So,
for?
so,
What is it that we're looking
so
for?
you just, it's either compliance or no compliance. If you feel like you don't have enough information, we erred on the side of no compliance, right? But you still can present to the, like, it's not like that you don't present that the district is making efforts, you
Right,
know?
right.
Because there's a difference between no compliance and saying, but we've seen we've seen the mentoring plan, we've seen this, we're just still looking for this, you know?
Okay.
It's not like no compliance.
And that's what I'm saying. So again, that goes back, maybe I just didn't hear the answer. Are we going to, I think you said 100% of the boxes. Are we still looking for 100% to say that there's compliance? Or are we going to say, okay, if out of these 10, I'm just throwing a number out there, that only 2 are not evident, that we can say that it's not compliant? Can we say, okay, they're compliant, but we're going to make these recommendations in this area to continue the work?
I think you all decide as a group, right? And it's what, it's like I said, you're like the jury. It's what, you know, without a reasonable doubt. So you decide based on looking at the information we've received, without a reasonable doubt, I can say the district has complied in this area. Or if you feel like the district has done a great job, however, these are still some concerns I have, then you would say no compliance and then give recommendations for the areas that you still have a concern. And it's majority, so
What say you, sir?
my feeling is that I think that there has been a significant effort and improvement. I think there are some things that need to be done, like Mr. Brown pointed out, so I don't feel personally that we have a full compliance there because there's still some more work to be done. So,
I preface that with serious work.
okay. So is everybody comfortable with a vote right now? Does anybody feel that it has not been a strong effort and it has been some success or many successes?
I'm prepared to vote if everyone else is.
Okay.
Let's
So
get it done.
would you like to make a motion?
I make the motion that we vote on whether the mentoring program meets compliance.
Second.
Okay. All in favor for compliance?
Can I,
All opposed to compliance?
Aye.
Aye. And could I make a motion that there just needs to be some things tweaked? It looks good, but there needs to be some things tweaked.
So with that, right, so you all do the motion for compliance.
Yes, and I'm sorry. I want, please mark the areas or write down something that you feel like has not been sufficiently addressed, covered, presented that would support the way you feel or something that we can see from somebody in the future? It was a 5-0.
No,
I didn't hear you say
I
anything.
wanted to,
Oh.
I wanted to, again, go back to, because again, I feel like, again, I know this is loose verbiage, but significant effort has been made. And I don't want to discredit that work or those efforts, because it was a lot. Again, and if you look back at those artifacts and all of the work in those practices, and it was a lot. So I just don't want to brush past that. So I would like to, again, as I mentioned before, say that they have complied. We just are not, I think we just need to make additional recommendations that are more quantified so that they can be easily tracked or monitored, so that we can, but to say that it's just no compliance, zero compliance, I think that's harsh, because there has been some in many of the areas. We talked about 2 that are not, right?
But okay, so let me address this.
Make it,
Every person has a vote.
yeah.
I apologize, you were on the losing end. So your explanation cannot trump what they feel like, or we
No,
feel like
and I'm
we saw.
not trying to trump, I just wanted that,
I don't mean to say it like that, but
I
I'm
just
just
wanted
saying.
that
And
to
then,
be on record and to be said. So we can move on to the next section.
yes, and if there's something that's why I'm asking you to make notes on things that you feel like you'd like to see clearer, or maybe see again, but we have a report to make.
Let's keep it moving.
Section 3, recruitment of African American teachers and instructional staff. Determine if the school district of Indian River County has provided adequate documentation demonstrating the efforts, strategies, and success for recruiting and employing African American teachers and instructional staff. Determine if the district's recruitment plan and resource allocation for African American teachers and instructional staff documents identifiable efforts to recruit and retain African American teachers. So we have the district submits a step-by-step plan of how African American teachers and instructional staff are recruited, and if you feel like that was one, then go ahead and put your check mark or whatever you think right now. Number 2 would be district submits a monthly report to Equity Committee of African American Recruiting detailing recruitment efforts. Report should include dates of recruitment activities, staff members involved, recruiting events attended, resources, budget, staff, et cetera, incurred for recruiting active trip and outcomes. Information regarding race, ethnicity, and specific teacher or instructional staff position interviewed for, extended offers, and hired. Submit documentation showing that strategies of Section 3A through L have been implemented. If the strategy is not working, show what steps have been taken to improve or replace the said strategy. Develop community partners to bring incentives to districts for African American hiring. Sponsorships to cover hiring visits and moving expenses with yearly lease commitment. Partnerships with Realtor Association real estate owners to supply affordable housing. Allocate funding and resources in budget for recruitment of African American teachers, incentives, and assistance for relocation. If you don't want me to read these all, I can stop and you can just go on your own.
You carry on.
No.
Okay. The superintendent placed fair hiring practices as a criteria for principal evaluation. Is it state required? District submits to the Equity Committee a monthly report of employment of African American teachers and instructional staff tracked by principal in schools each month. Report should include the number of African Americans that applied to positions, position each African American applied for if interview was given, race, ethnicity of those interviewed with African American for that position, and identify the person hired and rationale for the person hired. Also rationale for not hiring. A scoring sheet for interview and questions asked. Name of the person on the interview committee and race, ethnicity of those individuals. A yearly detailed report of the resources, budget, staff, et cetera, given for African American teachers and instructional staff recruitment. A yearly expense report for African American teachers and instructional staff recruitment. Partner with community organizations, fraternities, sororities, Indian River State College. Interviewing questions should be uniform. And the rest of those are quite lengthy. So let me If you have any thoughts, we'll entertain what you have seen and what have not seen. I'll start by saying that there was a significant number of African-American teachers brought on board. I believe that number, and I am going to check things a little bit further. We all received it, was about 35, 36, something like that. So, and then, let's see, I do know that there was, let's see, step-by-step plan. I think there was a plan, a monthly report to the Equity Committee of African American Recruitment, dealing recruitment efforts. I'm going to say to that one, and this is on the record, it's in the minutes, I had to ask for that information a few times. I had to ask for it unredacted a few times. The final numbers look good, but it was problematic in getting the information. And finally, I remember sitting up here and saying, can somebody tell me how many black teachers have been hired at this point? And that's when finally the young lady got up and gave the numbers. So it was a little bit of tooth pulling to get that, and I don't understand how or why, because once somebody puts an application into this district system, it is public record. So why it came redacted, I don't know. And I don't know if that happened in your committee, but it was.
No, we didn't get redacted information.
Okay. All right. Community
We also-
partnerships with real estate people. I know that she has the one real estate guy, at least one. I talked to Ms. Christofoli about 3 or 4. That piece is done, and we talked about it, I believe, in here. You guys remember that? And we talked about that some people, maybe they're comfortable with anybody. It could be a woman or a man or whatever. And we talked about having those options. So the recruiting piece was, the real estate / recruiting piece was clearly evident to me. You might feel different, and everybody's entitled to their own vote and opinion. Funding and resources in budget, I don't know if I don't recall getting anything on funding or resources. Did anybody get that? Okay. And you might not feel that's important. This next one, fair hiring practices as a criteria on the principal evaluation. I think it addresses the hiring. I don't know how held accountable that piece is. Dr. Moore, do you know if that's on the evaluation for principals, fair hiring practices?
It's not on their specific evaluation that I use to evaluate principals, but it's something that we monitor and look at, which is information that's been provided to the committee regarding the number of staff at specific school sites.
Okay. District submits to the Equity Committee a monthly report of African American teachers and instructional staff. We've got some of those reports. Scoring sheets, interview and questions asked, and the hiring committee.
Yes, I serve on the recruitment team for the district, so that I can speak to that.
Okay. Do you recall if that was brought in here? I didn't see it. Or should we be asking for that, to say, ask for an example of it? I mean, it wasn't, we didn't have, well, this is who was interviewed and who was that and whatever. I do know that we specifically asked for exit. I said, what about these exit interviews? We had a discussion on those, right? So when teachers leave, we wanted to know why and what was done to keep them. I remember that discussion was had. But I don't recall receiving anything on exit interviews. I know out of this last teacher, when I requested the numbers that left, everybody got the data. I don't know if you recall, I believe there were 12 or 13 African-American teachers who left the district last year, and there were 2 non-renewed, and the rest were for, it didn't say what reason. Could be personal reasons, could be family or whatever else. So when we have requested that, we receive that one. Budget and staff, partner with communities and organizations. Can anyone speak to that one? I've seen emails to Bethune-Cookman, FAMU, Florida Memorial. Now, will say that some of those were redundant. There were a lot of papers that were the same emails over. And at first it came redacted. So there is some kind of contact being made.
So I spoke with Ms. Christofuli, and I actually saw her encounter in the parking lot going to FAMU actually earlier this week. And she did speak about her having a mentor that was working with her in her department and connecting with that person when she goes. And she talked about some of the other universities that she has established partnerships and individuals that she spoke with us about it here, and she also speaks about it in conversation. So I, for me, that has been a priority for her.
Okay. I think the NAACP is listed as a community partner. Promotional materials.
Read that one again.
The NAACP has been listed as a community partner on the district website, and then it talks about using promotional materials to recruiting events, proof of publicizing the program for mentoring new teachers and instructional staff. Okay, proof that the district advertises teaching job openings in the Diversity in Education magazine.
Yes.
I think I've seen that one. Data must include the dates of recruitment activities, staff members involved. I've seen that. And data must include information regarding the race and specific teacher or instructional staff position for which candidates were interviewed, extended offers, and or hired.
So with this is an opportunity for you all to discuss even more than HBCUs, because HBCUs are not focusing on education. They're not producing the teachers.
Yeah, anymore.
Sam, you just got a $13 million grant for science.
Yeah.
STEM.
STEM, but it's-
And, you know, I'd be disingenuous not to say that there's an effort been made, but the totality, I was looking at documentation, there was erroneous information with the COEs. They didn't jail, you know. It's a lot of stuff, and then you say, I asked about the matrix from 2019 to 2021. How many you had, how many you kept, how many you left, how many. So if you said you hired 36 and 15 left, you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Having one teacher at every school, after 53 years of civil rights violation, I'm supposed to be happy with one African-American teacher at every school? No, we should go beyond. If you're going to show a true desire to inflict positive change, I applaud the effort that we're moving in a direction, but I mean, how much time is needed after 53 years? I mean, how much do we have to say, well, give me a minute, we are trying? I mean, somebody got to drop the gauntlet and say, this is what we're going to do. And I think the Equity Committee is supposed to hold the district accountable to making those bold and brave moves that we're going to do this and do it irregardless. One African-American teacher per school. Sounds good. 36 hirees. Sounds good, but you lost 15. So that gives you a net total of 11. I don't know, you know, it's just, y'all messed me up. When I was going through all of this stuff, you told me to do this, and I was going through this stuff, and it don't make sense when you, it's kind of like you tell me this information, but if I go to the doctor and the doctor gives me a medication, I got a friend who's a pharmacist, I'm going to go ask him all the side effects because I need to know. Don't tell me this is good for you, but you don't tell me the different nuances that it's not relevant, where you still got African-American kids showing up in classrooms and are going virtually through a whole elementary school and never seeing an African-American teacher. That's problematic. Even though I got to give it that you are making an effort, but does it equate to compliance? I don't know. That's just my feelings.
So I hear what you're saying, Mr. Brown. I have spoken with several teachers in the district who actually said that their motivation for becoming a teacher was because they never had a black teacher ever encountered one going through this district. So I understand that. I think I also just want to emphasize that we're supposed to be determining in this case if there's been adequate documentation. And I, for one, would posit that there has been adequate documentation. I think this is one of the stronger categories. We are certainly not where we need to be at all, but I think that there's evidence that there has been, you know, a determined and significant effort towards recruiting African-American teachers.
One question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Documentation. To me, in this situation, equates to you showing a hungry man a menu, but you're not letting him eat. Documentation is not putting black teachers in the classroom. You see what I'm saying? The documentation is a facet of the process. But I want to see black teachers where we brought them in here after 53 years. Documentation is all we're gonna get. And when we still have a school district that is not in compliance, are we at the percentage of African-American teachers we should have? You know, these are the questions that are relative to me for compliance, not just documentation or checking the box.
This is what it's asking for, though. It's asking if we have adequate documentation demonstrating the efforts.
It also says retention. So it's like the second sentence has recruit and retain. Because that's what was discussed too. Because if you recruit but you don't retain, then you're back to deficient recruiting.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
retention rate last year for new teachers, the 34, only one wasn't retained, so that's 97%. So retention is where it needs to be with new teachers. 9% of teachers 9% of African-American teachers in the district 2 years ago. Now there are 13%. So that's the meat on the bone, as Mr. Brown says. When you look at the overall percent, it has increased by 4 percentage points. When you look at the percent of students in the school, just now at 18%. If you look at the percent of African-American adults that live in the community, the 13% is equivalent to where we are as a community. So just all information, all has been, well, the community stuff is new, but everything else has been provided.
I'm going to ask you to say that again because I'm going to tell you this data that I just looked at that you guys sent me. Those teachers who left out of the 12 last year were all hired in the past 3 years. So now, say what you said again so I can get it. I was thinking somewhere else, but I was trying to hear you. So tell me what you said. You said 30-something%. What happened again? So last year we hired how many teachers? And you said
Last year we hired 34 teachers. 33 were retained. Going into this year, we hired 36 teachers. Obviously, it's a little too early to give a retention rate when you're only 8-9 weeks into the school year. All of them have mentors, all of them being assigned, the 36 that are in this year. When you're looking at overall African-American teachers in the district, it was 9, it was 9 since 2000, it was 9 when I got here in January of
when you say 9 what?
9%.
9% of the teachers in the district were African American.
And now that number is 13.
And our goal is 17, correct?
I think it's 18%.
18? Okay, so from 9 to 13.
And the recommendation was even beyond that,
15.
5 per school. I mean, we
Okay.
53 years, and we still squabbling over crumbs at the table.
I'm going to have to cut you off a minute, Mr.
Okay. I'm
Mr.
sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Brown. Because I'm thinking that it used to be, in the old DSEG, it was at least 20% of the new hires. So 33 hired last year, what was the total? Or 34 hired last year. The total number hired last year or this year, Mr.
Oh, I don't have that number.
Okay. Mr. Seymour, you think you might know, or Dr. Shafty?
Didn't they have 36?
No, 36 hired this year, but what was the total?
Oh,
Or was that,
because it was pending.
Okay.
It'll come to me.
yeah, okay. All right, so in that recruitment effort, I think is undeniably significant. It's strong. But when I say that some people are new and I've been here for a while, the recruitment effort has always had the potential to be strong. The question is, how many will stay and feel comfortable in this environment to be retained? So that is one portion of it. And one of the questions that I asked was how many African American teachers have applied and how many were not hired. And I can say without a shadow of a doubt, I never got that answer. So if that's something that somebody else got, please tell me. Or if somebody knows that I received that answer, please let me know.
One of the
But
things.
I'm sorry, I do see some strong areas with that recruitment effort, but and here was the way it was, and I want to make sure it's not going to be that way again. You're hired in the beginning of the year, a year or two, you're leaving for whatever reason. Because I know personally, I talked to a girl who was in tears over the phone at that school. I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. And you know,
Oh.
I love the part of the Matrix where they said, do you want the blue pill or the red pill? I think we get the red pill and take it and here have the honest truth right here. Yes, ma'am. Go
So
ahead.
one of the things, as I'm looking over this, I just want to make sure, because Ms. Green pointed out about retention, and we've been talking about that. Most of our indicators are focused on recruitment, and that's what I think has been targeted. So I think that if we're going, as we go forward, when we make the recommendations in this area, we should certainly make some efforts toward establishing what would be the look-fors for retention.
Yes. Ms. Green, I think I saw your hand.
So just to piggyback off what Ms. Walker is saying, like, I want you all to know, like, this is foundational, right? So every committee would build upon that. We try to provide something so that the next committee wouldn't have to start over from scratch. And like she's saying, we focused on recruitment, but we knew that retention is important, else you'll be like in a hamster wheel with recruitment. So please definitely provide suggestions.
And I concur. The retention, the recruitment is very important. But you said something that I had to write down. How many will be comfortable to stay in this environment? That's profound, because from the outside, some of these people, this is a job, they have bills, they have a student loan, and they suffer to survive. But some of them just can't handle the environment. So, you know, that's part of the mentoring. All of this stuff should come together to work for the good, not only of the student, but of the teachers and the school district. And it's not, because it's fragmented. And it seems like different people on different pages. And if we're not retaining our teachers, okay, we need to satisfy the DSEG order, so we're going to hire a bunch of black teachers. Once we get unitary status, we'll get rid of them. You know, this is what's been going on in 64 other counties in the state of Florida. We do it to get us unitary status, and now we go back to what's been going on forever. So recruitment is important, but retention is way up there.
Hello. You look like you have something to say, and I'll allow for it. Yes,
If I may,
sure.
make sure that's on. So I just want to say that, a lot of data has been provided. I agree that there's been a huge focus on recruitment first. I need to bring people in and then retain them. So this is a process. We had 27% of the people that we hired, you were asking about that, between the 20 and the 40. So this hiring season, 27% of the hires were African American. That equates to 36 teachers, 2 of which were employees that were in a support staff role and moved from a support staff role, which we recruited them to become teachers. So there's been a lot of progress. I understand what everyone is saying, and I understand the long history. This is my 21st year here. And I've been a teacher, a coach, assistant principal, a principal, and now I'm recruiting. So what I ask is that, yes, I feel that whether it's compliant or not, my understanding is we're looking for progress. We can't go, I hope no one has an expectation that in 1 year of Beth Crisafulli being the recruiter, that there's going to be at least 5 African American teachers at every school. That is an unreachable goal in 12 months. We have, however, done considerable gains at schools that were requested, that have been brought up at many meetings to focus on, as well as other schools. So my goal, and I want Mr. Brown, everyone else to hear that my goal is to reach every school, reach every student, reach every administrator, so that we all are being trained on how we mentor and bring the people in. And then, yes, we've been retaining by creating the We Promise, by, you mentioned the one box that says community partners, skimmed right over IRSC. So we've done considerable work with IRSC to create the Teacher Academy so that we are recruiting from within. We are taking our students and creating a path for them to be interested in becoming a teacher. And hopefully with the scholarship fund being in place, they don't have to pay for college, and they can become a teacher and come right back here and work for us. So, of course, it's great to be able to talk to everybody and say my bit, but, in a matter of a year, we have, and I'll say 18 or 15 months, whenever it was last January, but I came in basically July 1st, and my first day was the all-day equity committee meeting. So in about a year, we've done incredible work with recruiting. We are working on retention. I do communicate with every single new African-American teacher to make sure there's that relationship being built so they feel they can come to me or whoever else they need to come to. So I understand there's a process. I, sitting in the other room, want to know, well, if you're just like a teacher would, what is the requirement for compliance? Is it 80% like a mastery of a standard of the boxes? Is it 70% like the teachers need to reach to get highly effective on their evaluation? Is it every box? What is it? Because is it that everything is done and has reached the maximum? Or are you saying that we are compliant because we have shown sufficient progress? I don't know the answer to that question. So we have given a lot of data. We give the same reports over and over. You don't always ask for some of the reports, and then I come and it's not something you asked for, and then I'm asked the question and it's not in front of me, and then people think that we don't have the information, but we do. So, I can bring binders and binders of information every single time, and you can ask me any question you want. However, I feel it needs to be streamlined, and the process of going section by section and box by box is good. But if everybody hasn't looked at all the same data, how is that, how are you making an informed decision that's data-driven?
I'll have to cut you off right there.
Okay, thank you for giving me the time. And you know that you can always
Yeah.
reach out to me if you have a question.
Yes.
Thank you.
One thing I did was broke my own rule, what I said at the beginning, that wasn't going to allow people to be talking in just a committee. However, and you said skimmed over IRSC. Now, I said IRSC because I felt I was going to mess it up because I was going so fast. I remember saying that. And don't take it personal, because if there's anything through all these boxes, your efforts are the bright spot. So thank you for bringing them in. Now, and what we are seeing and what we have said is the comfortability. Is there a mindset that is pervasive throughout the district, in the administrative staff, that has that same mindset? And that's what's going to
Is that
make
a
it.
box? Do you know what I'm saying? Is that a
Yes.
box of the mindset? I have it on. Is there a box on the report card that we are trying to address the mindset? Because what I'm hearing is that we're checking off boxes, but then you're talking about whether there's a pervasive mindset change of
Yes.
the district.
Yeah,
I apologize. I'm going to turn it.
Mr. Chair?
I think Ms. Green had it first.
So before you go, Ms. Hofer, that's where the equity committees come in, right? Because these are check boxes that the last committee left to
Yes.
be a roadmap for the new committee. The new committee, when you hear the additional information being discussed, that's them adding value to what's already here. So we didn't discuss culture, which we should have, and that's where LaVon was discussing retention, right? So with retention comes culture, mindset, environment. So in your recommendations, that will be a heightened standard. So now you're fleshing out what retention is, which is what we didn't do. This report card by no means is perfect, right? And we don't want it to be a check in the box. At some point, we want to be able to look at the district and be like, oh, we know this is happening because we encountered this teacher, a number of teachers that did not have issues. Like, we haven't heard of kids saying that they're bored in class or they're targeted at school. Like, those are the things that we hope to get to with the district. But right now, in order to be able to report back to the courts, you have to have some type of benchmark, and where do we start? And this is where it is. Where you encounter this report and you feel it's flawed, then make the suggestions. You all vote to add or remove or whatever. Like, you all have that ability to do that. And even with your recommendations to the board, once they approve it, then now it's added to whatever is there. So I just wanted to say that.
Yes, and that, we already had that discussion, I think, a little bit earlier. What Ms. Christopherly said is talking about, is it check the box, and it's, how each of us, or when you have those 5 board members up there, they all have the same data or different data, and they all don't vote the same. So some people expect them to vote the same, and sometimes it doesn't happen. That's why they have discussion, that's why they have workshops, and it's the same thing as to why we would have a discussion and see if there's a consensus somewhere. And I don't think that, I think a lot of the onus is going to be on that director of recruitment, but then there's the rest of it that has to, somebody else has to do their part. Because when you bring people in too, and they get a mortgage, or they get a car payment, or they start paying for an apartment, and a year down the road, or year 2, or whatever, they feel like this place is not for them because of any reason can be fine, but if it's because of a reason we can prevent, then that's something that we need to address and take care of. Mr. Brown, did you have a thought?
Yeah, my concern was, people speaking and interjecting their thoughts into how this procedure should run, and how they feel and this and that. I keep going back into my soul. I was a part of this. 53 years of civil rights violations and atrocities, and now everybody's, why y'all in a hurry? This can't happen. My mom said can't is a word that should be taken out of the dictionary. You put us in this mess, let's get us out of this mess by any means necessary. Stop letting my children be the victims and be abused, misused, and the victims of an inept process, a dysfunctional process that minimizes who they are, and their civil rights are not relevant until we can make time to do them. We're here to make sure, after 53 years, that the Indian River County School District is held accountable for these atrocities and these civil rights violations, and we are the entity that the court decided is to decide the compliance. Not to hear sob stories, make excuses. Are you in compliance? If not, then we have to vote accordingly. I started this, I prefaced with, I must commend for the effort. But that effort is not going to benefit our children if we don't stand tall and make sure that this school district is in compliance, verifiable compliance. You know, and it bothers me, everybody making this so minimal, that there's 53 years of atrocities of civil rights violations against African-American children, students in Indian River County School District. That's a reality. And we're the entity that is supposed to bring about change. Not go along, not be the cheerleader, but say, this is wrong, this is right, this is wrong. Okay, you're not in compliance, but this is where you could do better. Yes, we got the recommendations, Mr. Chairman, but first of all, yes or no, are you not in compliance? It's simple. We making it, you know, that's just my 2 cents.
Are you ready for a motion?
Certainly. There's a motion on the floor.
I make a motion to vote on the, do I have to say more?
I'm
Do
sorry.
I have to say more?
Say that again?
I make a motion to vote on the retention and recruitment, section 3.
Okay. And your motion is to vote
To do the-
compliance or in,
No, she has to get a
So I have to
second.
get a second, right? And then we,
She put the motion on to vote. It now needs a second.
But to vote how?
how do you want that?
Yeah.
On what,
If you say, I want to vote for compliance, then we'll say yes or no, or either way, we're going to say yes or no. We're going to have the second, and then we'll take the vote as to what you are suggesting.
so I'll make a motion to vote on recruitment of African-American teachers and instructional staff, that there is compliance.
if there's compliance.
If there is compliance.
I'm still confused. So, are you making a motion to vote that,
I was making a motion to vote, that we vote, whether
Yes.
or not there's compliance. And then I'm supposed to get a second, right? Or a second.
Yes.
And then we vote
Oh.
Yes
whether
or
or not
no?
we think it's compliant. So you want me to start over?
Go ahead, start over.
You sound good doing that.
Thank you. All right, I'd like to make a motion that we vote on whether or not we have compliance on section 3, recruitment of African-American teachers and instructional staff.
Second.
All in favor of voting? Aye. Okay. So,
so that was,
yeah, I think you had it right the first time.
Now you vote
So
on
now you say
Okay.
compliant.
whether it's compliance or non-compliance.
So all in
Okay.
favor of compliance?
All in favor of section 3, recruitment of African-American teachers and instructional staff being compliant?
Aye.
aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
No, that was 2-2. So that fails, we'll go again.
You haven't
You
voted.
have a vote. You the tiebreaker.
I know. Give me a second. think I'll explain and then I'll give you my vote. It looks good. There was a lot of effort. But I think there were too many times and too many things that I had to ask for information that I did not get. How many black teachers applied for positions? How many got positions? Give me 10 seconds.
May I speak?
Not just yet. Okay, go ahead. Did you have something to say?
Yes. I was going to say that there's a retention portion that you all, I guess you kind of discussed it, but not really.
It should be made a part of that, should have been part of that motion.
Yeah.
I saw that.
Okay. That was it? That was your statement?
Yeah, that was it.
I'm going to have to go with no.
Yours was a nay?
Mine was a no.
I like to say,
Now,
but we can do recommendations. We don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and we can come in with recommendations within this to help boost it.
So if I may, then I'll change that to a yes, and I'll have some recommendations. Some strong recommendations. Because I think that department put in some hard work. I think the strong effort is there, but I'll say once again that there was not a lot of, it seemed like it took too long to get some of the data. And it seemed like sometimes it was hidden. Now, sometimes that, and I'm not saying from her, could have been from IT. One of the things we got, it was so small it had to be 6 point. You guys remember that? Too small to see. And we had to ask the IT team to go back and give it to us again. So I think that is a strong note that if we're getting that kind of resistance, then the district is willfully not complying. So I believe that was a 3-4 compliance with some strong suggestions coming. Should I be telling you that, Ms. Davis, or you're good? Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
you know, in that, you brought up a point that the COEs, the erroneous and misinformation in those, the documentation that I ran into, that there was no sign-in date, there was no hire date. It's a lot of stuff, and they're so ambiguous. You know, Stevie Wonder blind, but he'll have trouble with a lot of that. And that's problematic to me if we're going to move forward. You know, I see the recommendations, but I see the recommendations as a no, because is it systemic? Is it accidental? But when it continuously pop up, when I was reading this stuff, in the last 2 weeks, I did more reading than I want to do. But with reading this stuff, it keeps popping up. Is it real or is it Memorex? And that's why I'm conflicted. Why is all these missing passages? Why is all this erroneous information? Why are these people being paid? And then you have 14 applications of African Americans. Within the 14, 2 of them are white and 1 is a Hispanic. But it's documented as African Americans. There's something, you know, that's why I don't see compliance. You just throw numbers out there. oh, we did 14 applications, but within that process, 2 of them were white and 1 was Hispanic. And I said this 5 years ago, the desegregation order did not mean anything but African Americans. And when you got a document that states, as erroneous as that is, that you did 14 African American applications, but in your documentation, 2 of them white and 1 of them Hispanic. I don't think that's compliance. I think that's something that's going on that is not obvious, and somebody need to be held accountable. And by being non-compliant is the only way that they're going to be, oh, we got away with that when we did good, but we'll worry about the recommendations. You know, it's problematic to me.
Okay. I believe we're on section number 4.
So what do you all decide for 3?
Compliant.
3 was compliant.
Okay.
And I stress that information, the redaction, the small font, all of the issues that we had to go through. We're not going to do that again. Number 4, representation of African American teachers and instructional staff. Examine the teachers' demographics for each school in the district and determine if its teacher population by race reflects the district's aggregate student population for that race. The African American teacher representation at each school should reflect the aggregate African American student population for the district, currently 17.2%, allowing for a variation of plus or minus 3%, not to fall below 5 teachers per school. Report detailing the race, ethnicity of current teacher and instructional staff, role by principal and school, supported by an easily readable chart showing the racial ethnic makeup of their teaching and instructional staff. Report from principals detailing all teaching and instructional staff vacancy announcements, including the race, ethnicity of each applicant, interviewee, person selected to fill the vacancy, and rationale for hiring said report. Report should be easily readable. Monthly report from principals detailing all teaching and instructional staff vacancy announcement, including the race, ethnicity of each applicant, interviewee, person selected to fill the vacancy, and rationale for hiring said person. Report should be easily readable. Submitted to the Equity Committee and Board monthly. Monthly report detailing the race, ethnicity of current teacher and instructional staff, role by principals and school, supported by an easily readable chart showing the racial ethnic makeup of their teaching and instructional staff in Excel format. Principal meeting discussions should include hiring practices and reviewing those practices. Provide culturally competent training for all district staff. If there is turnover at African American teacher instructional staff, non-renewal, transfer, leave, or resignation, provide the reason for the turnover. Show documented efforts and opportunities presented for former employees to provide feedback. Show how feedback is being implemented to increase retention. Positions added to the equity department to ensure oversight. Districts should develop a plan of remedial measures prior to non-renewal termination in order to show that corrective measures and additional support was provided prior to separation. Please submit the plan to the Equity Committee. Endeavor to maintain a reasonable representation of African American teachers and instructional staff at each school.
So the next 2 bullet points are redundant, and we voted for a higher level, which was stated above. But Chris pulled those from the joint plan.
Okay. Proof of listings of all teachers.
Yeah.
Student require principals to maintain information regarding each teaching and instructional vacancy, including the race of each applicant, interviewee, person selected. Representation of African American teachers and instructional staff. Do you recall the data that I pulled from each school? But there were some lacking at schools. I also pulled hiring of the last 5 years. The second bullet, is problematic for me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's see, 6, 7. The 7th bullet, turnover of African American, I don't think that would be the exit interviews and, telling how many left or came. I got that finally at the 16th, September 16th meeting. The last bullet says proof of the turnover at each school and the reason for the turnover, if known. That would be the exit interviews and discussions on how and why we're losing. Those are my initial thoughts on that section. Anyone else?
This is for every school, right?
Yes.
That's within the recommendations from the previous committee. Let's take Osceola. How many African Americans at Osceola?
I think they're up to 2 now.
Student population.
Oh, student
When
population?
we correlate population with African American teachers and staff,
Mhm.
That's why that 5, exceeds the percentage.
Mhm.
I mean, corporate, I would say, I go back to right before Dr. Moore got here and previously, I got my 1. That still rings in my head when a principal says, I got my 1. On several occasions.
Mhm.
So if we don't make the standard high, then I got my 1. Or if the percentage is low, because we throw around racially definable schools. They're all racially definable, but they're mostly white. So when you go into your kids of color, brown and black, and preferably black, when those percentages are represented, then the number of African Americans at that school could do this, based on a Dodger town, which you got around 30-some across the board, 30-some percent African American, Hispanic, and poor whites. So those percentages differ from Osceola or another type magnet school where your African American population is not as big, so your percentage is down, therefore your requirement is lower.
Just above the bullet, just above the yellow, along with exit interviews, I don't think it was discussed about remedial measures to show what was, if somebody left, they were paired with this person and that person, and here's what we tried. I don't recall that discussion, and I don't recall getting that information. I know we discussed it because I talked about it. And I talked about using Miss Willis. I talked about using, it was Miss Willis and Mary B. McKinney. And Godfrey Gibson, some retired educators. And those were when teachers were getting into situations where they felt like they were maybe shaky or not going to make it. Lesson plans were, who knows, whatever the problem was. I brought in those teachers when I was here to help them. So I know that was one of the remedial measures, but in this one, I didn't see anything like that. So that's my other thought. Any more on this section? All right, well, do I have a motion to call for the vote?
So moved.
Second.
For section 4, all in favor of compliance for this section, say aye. All in favor of non-compliance,
Nay.
nay. Okay. Please make a note and write down why you felt like there was non-compliance, so we have feedback to give. Continued plan supervision is section 5. This section reiterates that the school district will continue under this 2018 DSEG order while the plan developed by the parties for achieving full unitary status is implemented. This will maintain an avenue for dealing with problems should any occur in the process of implementation. This order will continue in effect until further court order. The case will remain open. The parties agree that there has not yet been a determination of full unitary status, and the court shall retain jurisdiction of the case. Questions? Is there data received that presents a red flag or should be brought to the board's attention? Where's the avenue for that? There should have been an avenue put in place for dealing with problems should any occur. The only avenue currently available is to speak during citizen input. Current time of board's discussion meeting is not a convenient time, and I think that we propose since the desegregation order is a priority that the board place the district's progress toward meeting the DSEG order on the agenda monthly as needed. This is to ensure measures in progress and are being frequently discussed with the superintendent and monitored by the board. I believe they have a meeting coming up. We feel that the board members should attend at least one meeting to hear the concerns of the equity committee members and citizens and to learn about the activity of the district. Thank you, board members who attend via Zoom, and of course, Dr. Jones, who's been here every meeting that I've been here. We recommend the NAACP and board meet quarterly and or biannually in addition to annual progress meeting. We recommend the superintendent emphasize to district staff that compliance with this DSEG order is non-negotiable. For the continued plan supervision, any comments about any of those areas?
No quarterly meetings?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
No quarterly meetings?
Okay. Is that for me to call
No,
those
you,
quarterly meetings?
and
or-
within the caveats of the recommendation,
Oh, okay.
it says quarterly meetings with the NAACP. A process for bringing problems to the board, other than your 3 minutes. As the president of the NAACP, I refuse to come to the board meetings, for a 3-minute conversation. So, there's an avenue of interfacing with the board, is which I thought this encompasses, as far as the NAACP was concerned. If I'm reading it wrong, we recommend the NAACP and board meet quarterly and or biannually in addition to annual progress meetings. Both parties agreed. Then the part where there's about having conversations without the 3-minute process. Matters that I couldn't come before the board in a meeting to talk about the young ladies who was complaining about the mentoring or other issues that I have. That's not the proper avenue which to bring these things forward. So a process, an open process of communication is very likely. We just buried a young lady who came to me, who was born, bred, and raised in Indian River County, awesome teacher, wanted to come back here and wasn't hired, and I was trying to get somebody to see it, and I didn't hear it. It all fell on deaf ears. Now she's deceased. So, these are the kind of things that reflect negatively when the NAACP interacts on behalf of some teachers or stuff, and it goes to mute ears. So those just reading the different things, they just came to mind.
Well, that number 3 is definitely being one. That is a positive. We have the members, some board members come. The quarterly meeting thing is, as you just said, unless there's something happening quarterly that I don't know, I guess is not happening. I do believe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the fifth one, that the superintendent is emphasizing to district staff that this is important and/or non-negotiable.
That's your assessment on number 5. We recommend that the superintendent emphasize to district staff.
I think in conversations that I've heard.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at where the rubber meets the road. If, I look at it, if up top is demanding, certain things are not gonna go on. Certain things are still going on in this district that are serious issues. I mean, and the thing that, and I told several superintendents, this district is run by fear and intimidation. People are afraid to say something because of their jobs. You keep talking about the exit interview. I know a young lady did the exit interview, and the way she felt, I asked her why. She said, because I didn't want it to affect my next job. So something is going on when the bottom is not doing what the top says it's telling them to do. Because there's a lot of problems, and you even brought up one with that situation where Mr. Seymour had to intervene with people leaving. Somewhere the message was not getting down to the principal. That hey, Houston, you have a problem. What you doing about it? So I don't know. I don't see it that way.
I can't refute that. Anybody else have, before I get to you, Ms. Green, any? Ms. Pender, Ms. Walker, Ms. Patterson,
It's pretty straightforward. I agree with what
Ms. Green.
So that goes back to hiring and retention, where he's discussing.
Mhm.
But this section, you don't vote on. This is not a voting section. This is basically where you all
Information.
put any comments, concerns, or obstacles that you have seen in this process, or any suggestions you have for the board and the NAACP for them to do during this process. So it's not like you're not voting to see if they've complied or not in this area. It's more so like recommendations. Like you may tell the NAACP, we would like for you to come more, or the board, we would like for you to come more in this area.
Thank you very much. So I believe, Mr. Brown, you were saying a more open line of communication with the board beyond having to come and just do 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, excuse me. Let's move on to section 6. African American Student Achievement and Resources Allocation. Examine the African American Achievement Plan and supporting achievement and discipline data. Determine if the district has eliminated the achievement gap between African Americans and white students. Determine if the district has eliminated the disparities in discipline pertaining to African American students and white students. Detailed plans showing efforts and strategies are implemented to eliminate the achievement gap, as well as data showing substantial results using plan implementation. Include grade and test scoring levels by race, ethnicity, and school. And I remember reading that one specifically in the plan here. So it says by school, we got to get that data. Okay. Programs specifically for African American students to assist with achieving academic improvement. Quarterly detailed report of resources allocated to the achievement gap by school principal. Include what they are doing specifically for African American students. Develop an African American achievement plan that reflects measurable goals that mirrors Pinellas County Bridge the Gap Plan should include statistics for removals for all black students, as well as the current statistics for African American ESE student removals, specify in and out of school suspensions, arrests, and any other infractions that result in students being removed from the classroom. Please provide a breakdown by school. Input charts that are easily readable for parents. In this chart, show all ethnicities by grade, including all grade levels by school. Ethnicities should be color-coded to help parents, students better identify, understand, and decipher information. African American history, okay, bring back closing the achievement gap. Develop special programs specifically focused on African American students for closing achievement gap. They should include tutoring programs as well as other measures. Provide details of those special programs and other district efforts being made specifically for African American students to close the achievement gap. Provide resources allocations for schools showing resources allocated for closing the gap. Name and description of the program and what resources are allocated to the gap, to the program. Data provided should include student achievement data monitored in the 5-year strategic plan monitoring framework with demographic information for each student group. This would enable the parties to examine the residualized gain scores across the school year by 7, include race by grade and within schools. Discipline data should also be included in the 5-year strategic plan monitoring framework. Determine if the African American Achievement Plan identifies barriers to the academic achievement of African American students, list strategies, procedures, and/or programs that will be implemented to improve the academic achievement of African American students and address the identified barriers, and set measurable goals for the improvement of African American achievement. Address any disparate discipline of African American students and the assignment of African American students to special programs such as ESE and alternative ed programs, including whether such assignments exceed state and district averages for other groups. We had an in-depth, maybe a couple of sessions on the alternative school with Principal Brown and his crew, I think Ms. Cowie. No, somebody was there. 2 ladies I had with them. And and in that discussion, I remember that African American students were about 65 to 70% of the alternative school population. Very highly disproportionately assigned. And let's see, 1, 2, 3, third bullet down, and I'm going over what sticks out with me, and you can do the same. Or if you'd like to go first, I'll let you go first. I don't want to take over. Specify in and out of school suspensions, arrests, and any other infractions. So we have not gotten anything on arrests. As a matter of fact, some of the by-school data that it calls for in this plan, when we got the data, it was starred. Am I correct? Anybody remember that? Starred data that said that it would identify students, so we can't address it. You can't tell how many kids per school or which, it wasn't even how many, it was less than 10 and it was starred. So you can't tell which school is disproportionately sending African American students to the alternative school or having arrests of African American students disproportionately. And I say that disproportionately because I don't, it's not my place to say that students may not do something that rises to the level of arrest, but make it equal. If Johnny does it and Tavarius does it, the same thing, they get the same punishment. It has been disproportionate. And some of the information that we asked for can't even take a look at, and we had that discussion that maybe the NAACP could get it in their figures. I think on the achievement gap, what we received is that there was a 30-point gap. Nothing by school. And if anybody knows this plan, unless I have to read it, doesn't it say by school? Anybody read that? Section 4. no, I'm sorry, I'm reading my V's back, section 6. V's and I's. Talks about ESC and alternative programs, whether assignments exceed state and district averages, like mirrors in this report card. Monitoring the school district's implementation of the plan, resulting effectiveness of the plan, improving academic achievement of African American students. Discipline data. Okay, the very bottom of page 6. I'm sorry, you don't have it. You probably should have it. This would enable parties to examine the residualized gain scores across the school year by race, by grade, and within schools. So when we get the data that says there's just a 30% gap, is that a 30% gap at each school? Or is that overall? So it doesn't look like it's what? Sufficient enough. And then the goal is the gap. Has the gap changed? And we talked about before, we don't, and I hate to say it, I like that Indian River is doing better than some other districts, but we're trying to compare to ourselves and what was done inside this district. Maybe I talk too much. Go ahead. Anybody else?
I'm just,
In what I read, I'm sorry, I see you pulled the plan. It was on the bottom of page 6.
how is arrest defined for trespass? How does the district, it doesn't, in your arrest, like you said, arrests are necessary if a person is committing a crime.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a kid who was suspended, got back on campus? That's, under the discipline part is problem. And maybe I'm looking at information I pulled up that I was privy to. We heard that 90% of African-American seniors are in line for graduation. But the district has 68% of African-American students below grade level. I had a problem over the week trying to, address that in my head. And then the gap. Is the gap closing, literally closing, or is the gap where, I think at one time, this is documentation, I was blessed or cursed with a photographic memory, that 29 plus a hair of African-American students, then it was 60% plus or minus for white students. And if the gap is closing, now it appears to be the white students at 50%. Is we going up, going down? Sometimes, like I said, I was all over the place pulling up websites, trying to find this, asking questions, trying to get information. And when it comes to the achievement, I was lost, and befuddled as to how is this relevant? How is this in real time? How is this reflecting on our students? How can I prove that Johnny is getting a proper education? Are African Americans moving up or are whites moving down? I'm conflicted in that measure. So when you start talking about the gap, I got a situation, and like I say, arrests, the discipline numbers, how they now being done. And I'm really concerned about 68% of African-American students are below grade level. And if I were to say, well, that means 32% are proficient, then let's define what is proficient. Proficient is ambiguous, because it doesn't really let you know how proficiency is calculated. So those are some of the things with the achievement that.
Yeah, that may be level 3 and above, or it may be.
I didn't say that.
Or,
I'm just saying it,
but that's
things
something that
make
we'll
you
need
go,
to look at. But in my opinion, I don't have a whole lot there. And this section looks at the gap. It looks at the arrest. It looks at the alternative school, and we know that there's room to grow or get better. Any further discussion? All right, Section 6. Do I have a motion on the floor regarding Section 6?
Move to vote on compliance or non-compliance?
Second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ms. Pender. A motion and a second, all in favor? I'm sorry, motion and a second, all in favor of compliance on Section 6, African American Student Achievement and Resource Allocation. Say aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Section 7, African American Student Assignment. Examine each school, each SDIRC school's student population by race to determine if there are any racially identifiable by school. Each school's student population should reflect the student population of the district student body. For instance, if African American students make up 15% of the students in the district, each school's black student population should be in close proximity to 15%. So the recommendations were provide race of students by school, by designation of zone school and school choice. Also include transportation method, bus, car, walker, etc. Report showing student enrollment numbers versus students riding school buses, breakdown by school into subgroups of race for those busing to school. A study to research why some schools are more racially identifiable than others. Ask parents that choose school choice to give feedback on reasons for not attending their zone school. Provide statistics for bus riders, walkers, and car riders for each school. The district should consider doing a rezoning study because of Storm Grove Middle School has 1073, Oslo 926, Gifford Middle 651, and Sebastian River Middle 900. How will those schools be impacted by Somerset's opening? I guess that must have been a charter school, by school choice. Provide documentation of strategies and plans implemented to achieve compliance with student assignment. Any discussion on that section?
I wasn't privy to it. When we talk about choice, African-American students' ability to go to choice is relied on their ability to provide their own transportation in most cases, right?
No.
There are some cases where transportation is provided. I'm not sure if all students get transportation.
It was in the documentation.
I didn't see it.
Okay. I know that I see some students getting transportation when I'm going.
Since it wasn't reviewed. We do provide bus depots, so any student who wants to choose a magnet school or a choice school has the opportunity to access a depot station, which would pick them up and take them to those particular schools.
Mm-hmm. And I do know that there were some choice spots available at the magnet schools, and that there were a significant increase of African American students in some of those choice spots. Now, the portion 1, 2, 3, part C, we have discussed here the high percentage of African American students at Dodgertown and at Gifford, and I have used the term racially identifiable schools, and I have asked as far as what the plan would be to rectify those schools. I've also talked about the numbers as they are here, I don't know if they're still the same, of those 4 middle schools, Storm Grove, Oslo, Gifford, and Sebastian River Middle. So with this section being African American student assignment, the student assignment is becoming more fair from what I've seen in the magnet school choice enrollments. It used to hover around 4%. It was very poor. And however, we do have schools particularly, and it's troubling to me in the fact that they are racially identifiable in the black neighborhood where, and well, it's becoming more a diverse neighborhood now, the Gifford area. And I'll just say right here, I've passed by, I have some pictures for future presentations that some of those schools look neglected. But I'm talking about I'll get back to the population, African-American student population here. So there's identifiable, that same bullet still sticks out to me. And I don't know if anybody else has noticed that. Any comment or question before?
You were talking about provide documentation of strategies and plans implemented to achieve compliance with student assignment. I must be talking to a different group of people, because the problem is what type of information is provided to black parents in reference to choice, magnet, or even charter schools. See, charter schools are still public schools.
Right.
And we giving them a get out of jail free card.
Yes.
And when you go to that one, where is documentation that Ms. Walker showed up and she wanted to know how could she access a charter school? If this is the documentation that we gave her to let her know these are the differences, these are the nuances associated with it. Because people are telling me they don't know what they don't know. Well, Mr. Brown, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. I was told, that's why I brought up transportation. Because it's lingering from previously, well, unless you were zoned for this and this, but all of a sudden choice has come out. And African-American people, they don't sit around, they working people, they don't watch, you might have a better chance of getting information to them on Facebook or TikTok than to do it on the website or something like this, if it's relevant to them getting their children, and a lot of them want their children in these programs, but they don't know. So when you say the numbers are increasing, maybe the numbers would increase more if there was a way for these parents to find out what it takes if they want to get in a STEM program, if they want to get an early start on their kids' algebra or pre-algebra or something of this nature, so that when they get to 8th or 9th grade, they can look forward to getting a good education rather than getting into 9th grade and never taking algebra because somebody just say, oh, you only need general math. So some parents came to me concerned about, Mr. Brown, how do I navigate? So I don't know if that documentation, I looked for it, I don't know, maybe I missed it. I'm human, but I didn't see where there was documentation and provided for parents.
That is good information. Mine is my own. I may be skewed because I'm looking at the website and I'm old and dumb having little ones going into elementary school. So I look for that information. So you're probably absolutely right. Somebody said that to you, and that's, yes,
So,
sir. Ms. Walker.
You know, I wonder, I've seen a lot of internally, right? I know that there are choice fairs. I know that there's a lot of effort going in. I'm wondering if we need to be more specific about targeted outreach, right? Because I can say that there's definitely efforts there's school choice fairs, there's transportation provided, there's all kinds of things, but I don't know that we're necessarily getting to that audience that you are referring to.
For example, it was the event the other day.
Oh,
One-
the focus thing for the parents at 1
Yeah,
o'clock.
1 o'clock in the afternoon.
See, our
Really?
parents- That's right, our parents.
You may be doing something, but you're not doing anything. Because you have a single mom working 2 jobs, and her boss is not gonna say, oh, you could take off and go to a focus, or you could do, no, I have to do rent, light bill, all of this stuff. So it's not conducive to that parent to be here at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and you can check the box and say, we put on a fair. Yes, you did, but was it relevant to this DSEG order where African-American students are privy to it, therefore are their parents privy so that they can move their child through? I mean, intention is good, but it's not necessarily compliance.
So I think that we just need to be more specific as we're providing those recommendations about the target and considering different barriers for all parents. I just think we need to be specific in that language so that guidance is there.
Good suggestion. Thank you. Trying to write that down. Please write those down, because that 1 o'clock meeting, there are some people who can't do it. Any other information I would be good. I know they've been having like that choice fair that at the last meeting,
Yeah, October
I think you mentioned it.
In
Mr.
which
Chairman.
that is going to be offered again. The focus on focus is going to also be offered. So I think maybe it's just multiple opportunities for that to happen.
That's what I was gonna
So that is definitely going to be a focus on Saturday, which is an, weekend, and hopefully more people will be able to do that. We also have the district app that all parents can download, and you get instant text messages. So you mentioned like social media and phones and things of that nature. So it's not just, that information isn't just on the district website for people like you and I who know how to click, click, click and get there. It is easily accessible through the school app. So it's a matter of them downloading the app.
That's it. See, some say they're not
They-
technology savvy, so.
I mean, they're on social media. It's enough people that know how to operate a phone, that know how to, you just
But
literally,
my parents-
you know what I mean? But that is another avenue. I know that I can say that that's another effort to convey information and different things that are going on within the district.
Mr. Seymour, yes, sir.
But they got things that had to go round them up.
Just to piggyback off of that, Mr. Chairman, also, the same process will be running through a Facebook Live for parents to actually introduce this same process, and it will be an ongoing process with parents. So just to say, it's a starting process for us, but growth is definitely needed. But the expectation is that this be a continual process, and as we continue on, we build on the information necessary to reach all of our parents going forward.
Thank you. Thank you very much. If you could, Ms. Patterson's going to have to put some of that stuff on Facebook. And, those of you
And I
who-
believe there are also flyers being dropped off to
So we
schools.
have flyers.
So that parents can also have access that way. You are that's right, I knew it was someone in the room. He is responsible for dropping off flyers and information, and he's doing a wonderful job. Thank you so much, Mr. Hart, for connecting with the community and keeping our parents in the know about the goings-on in the district, so thank you.
Okay, thank
Just
you.
have a, Mr. Chairman, a question with choice, and how do African-American parents get the necessary data, information for them to make a good decision on choice? We know as Mrs. Pender, who works with a lot of kids of color and their parents, they're not that technical savvy. Everybody don't do Facebook. Some do TikTok. How do we let them know, okay, just take Beachland. Beachland may be a good school of choice, but is it a good school of choice for African-American students? What is the population of Beachland? Or what is Osceola? We have to find out, are these schools beneficial to our children? And the parents need to be informed in real time and with real stuff. So data, achievement, academic data. I want to know, as a parent, I may be a grandparent, but I got 3 of the biggest families in Indian River County, and a lot of my nieces and nephews are in elementary school. I want to help their parents make positive choices to where they want to go, send their child to get a good education.
All right, excellent, yes, I hear you. Miss, she's got her hand raised and thinks I'm gonna see it. I have a slight headache and it's like here, I'm tunneled. I can see you and you gotta wave, you gotta move, sorry.
So I think, I don't know if you all considered it in the beginning, but like I haven't heard anything about charter schools until now. So I don't know if you're voting prior, if you all consider charter schools in each of these, because the charter schools are under the DSEG, our scores that we receive includes the charter school testing scores. I don't know if that impacted any of your decisions or not, but I just wanted to point that out, because even when you talk about student assignment, you know, it's also looking at the charter school data. When you talk about hiring and retention, charter school data, student achievement, all that, charter school. And last year, we actually had the charter school principals come in and
Yeah, they did.
had conversations with them. So I don't know if you all have considered that in your,
They did do.
I heard some of the bragging about everything that was done last year. No, I'm sorry, I
not
failed.
bragging.
Well, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I did not. We didn't get to the charter schools. And I understand that they are important, so they will be on the horizon as soon as possible. And to look at where.
I was invited. I know one, Mr. Dobbs, Dr. Dobbs, he's ecstatic about following the DSEG order. When a principal comes to you and say, come to my school and show me what I need to do to make it better, I'm open, I'm honest, I know I'm not doing it right. Those are the people that want to make a difference, but we've been giving the charter schools to get out of jail free card. Everybody's, because of the money behind them and the power, everybody is afraid to hold them accountable. Well, they're on the federal guidelines, they're this, that. No, they are receiving federal dollars for public schools, and they should be held accountable, but it's not the NAACP, the equity committee, it's the district needs to say either join up or we gonna handle you, and it's gonna affect how we relate to compliance because their refusal to do what's right.
And we haven't heard from charter schools say they may very well be giving that message to them. So, but definitely we will find out. That's a failure on my part to include the charter schools just yet. And I remember having the discussion with the board about that one afternoon. Any more comments?
So I was wrestling with whether or not I want to say this, but I am. I am a mother of a daughter who just graduated from high school, and she started her elementary career. So when we're talking about student assignment and school choice, something you said resonated with me about, do I tell someone to go to this school? She started out at a Title I school from kindergarten to second grade. And I was so excited to get her into a school in this district that had a wonderful reputation and all of that. And she went there from 3rd to 5th grade, and she, as she graduated, said, I hated that school. I never had a friend. There was no one who ever really talked to me. I struggled a whole lot. So I think it's important to also realize when we're talking about culture, climate, student assignment, and all of that, that we make sure that we are examining all of those, because that was such a shock to me. She never, every day, going to school every day and coming home every single day, we did not know that she felt that way. But obviously graduating and, you know, still having those feelings is very, very real. So I just want to be on the record and, you know, emphasize why this work that we're doing is so very, very important. It is difficult, it cuts. As an employee of the district, I know that there are tremendous efforts that are going forward to make change and to bring forward equity. But I do think it's important, again, just to emphasize that, you know, it is certainly a part of the climate, and the culture is so essential in making sure that everybody feels accepted and a part and welcome in the district.
Okay, we'll have that question later. Very good input. I was thinking about Mr. Seymour and with a question that I don't know if schools have surveys of students that say, how students feel. Do they have friends? Do they, at elementary levels?
Yes.
Okay.
But do the people answer them? I mean, do the kids even answer them?
Yes, they do.
Honestly, that's it. Do they
Well, I mean, we
really-
can't dictate how they answer, but they are kid-friendly.
Okay.
They are designed to meet the students where they are, as far as their level of understanding. So yes, and that data is definitely collected, and the schools act on it accordingly, appropriately.
Thank you.
And to piggyback off of that, if you have, for instance, as Ms. Walker stated, your daughter at a school where she's in the major minority, and you do that survey, what you think her answer's gonna be?
I mean, how else would you?
No, I'm talking not as an adult. I'm going
saying
back
as
to
a
you.
child.
She's gonna answer those questions to maintain her likability. She's gonna answer those questions where she does not become stigmatized. Children are not as slow as we try to make them, and they understand their environment and the nuances that are going on around them. So if she's in a predominantly white school where she's in the super minority, and you put that survey, her answer is going to be relative to because she don't know who's going to read them. They're going to answer relative to them being safe in that school.
But you agree it would be some kind of valuable information, right?
We can't just take it and say it's totally.
I would say it would be,
credible.
I would put an asterisk by it because
Okay.
it can be.
And without
I can
even
agree with
looking at
that.
it, I think you need to take a look at these surveys and make an opinion. I think you would be able to have a better opinion or perspective on it if you actually saw the survey. Don't just automatically assume what a child would do or how they would react.
One of the
We need to
things-
make informed decisions or have an informed opinion.
Okay.
One of the reasons that I think that I did bring it up too, though, is because when I looked at this information, maybe sometimes parents do, and I mentioned this on the last committee, want to keep their kids in schools where they feel like people look like them, and they know that, like Ms. Burnett was here, and she spoke beautifully about, how she establishes a culture for her students. So, what if some of this is that I want to keep my child at Gifford or at Dodgertown because I know there that people look like them and people care for them.
Because if it's school choice, the parents are choosing,
Absolutely.
for one reason or another, for their child to attend that school.
My conversation is not based on the survey itself. My conversations is based on interfacing with these children.
Hold on, I'm gonna cut you off, Mr. Brown. I'm sorry. You're gonna get me to this girl right here. Yeah, Ms. Green. She's,
Well, if you all attend the Equity in Action event that Dr. Long had, there was African American council there, and they spoke to their experience at the high school, which they didn't feel like they were included. So they had a negative experience. They felt like they were treated differently than white students were. But then also, when we talk about schools and school choice and parents, like some parents take their kids to that school because they don't have transportation, right?
Yes.
Or their family's in that area and can go pick the kid up. So that was something that when we talked about, we needed more information to really know the reason for having these schools that are predominantly Black or predominantly Hispanic. But then if you also look at those schools, right? So if you look at Dodgertown and I think it's Fellsmere, it's three of the schools, they're in the bottom 300 for the state. The schools that are predominantly minority are performing the lowest. So then that goes back to
the
academic
achievement gap.
achievement for you all and allocation. So like there's a number of things that touch just this one section that you're in.
okay,
Absolutely.
yes. Mr. Seymour.
That was, Mr. Chairman, that was one of the things I was getting ready to say. As we know about our African American Student Council, who was a great group of students who were very vocal, talked about all of the experiences and gave me the information that I needed to build certain programs, which I was going to talk about when we got to extracurricular activities. They were talking about, just like Ms. Green said, about the things that, hindered their process and ability to perform or be a part of certain activities. And they spoke of not being wanted and not feeling respected, or either not getting the support that they needed. So hopefully when we do get to extracurricular activities, I can talk about some of the processes that are in place now as a result of their surveys.
All right.
And I do have them on file.
Okay, and so they do have that, the councils there active now. I think it's Sebastian and Vero?
We have overseen every middle school, every secondary school now is fully active.
Okay. Good stuff, Mr. Seymour. Any further discussion regarding this section? Okay. Do I have a motion to vote? Or not
So
yet?
moved.
So moved. Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor of compliance on this section? All in favor of non-compliance on this section? Aye. I think, I'll get it later. I think this gives us a little more focus on how deep we're going to have to go, this whole discussion. Section 8, Transportation. The school district will continue to operate under the requirements of the 1967 order, which requirements were not changed by the 1994 order with respect to transportation, which mandates that no student shall be segregated or discriminated against on account of race or color in any service, activity, or program, including transportation, and that where transportation is generally provided, buses must be routed to the maximum extent feasible in light of the geographic distribution of students so as to serve students assigned in accordance with the provisions of this plan. The Equity Committee shall be responsible for monitoring the school district's compliance with transportation requirements. And recommendations of reports showing student enrollment numbers versus students riding school buses, breakdown by school into subgroups of race for those busing to school, provide documentation that will assist committee in determining if student enrollment is affected by students not having access to transportation to their school of choice, and proof of the numbers of students accessing bus transportation broken down by student groups. Any discussion?
I know I haven't requested any information or data regarding transportation, so I'm not really, I'm not informed enough to really speak to any of these things. I don't know if any of you all have requested or seen data or anything to
So,
that speaks to.
anybody else?
I've not seen any information on transportation numbers that I'm aware of.
So I don't know, I guess this would be a point to ask for someone to speak to it, because again, we've been so focused on the other sections, I don't think this is one that we've
Right.
given much attention to, so I don't feel comfortable,
So we could,
maybe.
is it a possibility to bypass this one until next time?
I think so, I don't want to vote either way without having looked at data.
But with a note that we certainly will be looking for this very same data, same report card next time. Did I see you wave, Ms. Green?
No, you did not.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so we haven't requested anything for transportation. We haven't been given anything for transportation. But that will be an area we'll focus on next time, and we can, Dr. Moore?
Transportation has been provided, so if we review the documentation, then we should be able to make a recommendation.
Okay, what was in there? Please tell us.
What was in there was the ridership, proof of the number of students accessing bus transportation broken down by student subgroup, and looking at the students in FTEs from October to October. So looking at the students from 2020 who rode buses as well as the previous year. That was the.
Do you know when that one was provided?
Over the course of the information that was provided, it's probably in the email, the updates that we provided to the committee.
You have that with you now?
No, I don't have it with me, no.
It may be included on in the last email that we received. Was that the last joint plan? You have your computer up? No?
Well,
No, I was
yes,
just
yes,
asking.
I
if
do,
it-
but
If it was.
you don't have anything. Nobody has it,
I don't have
and
it.
Dr. Moore says it's there, but he doesn't have it. They give it to Ronald Reagan, but I don't know. He said trust but verify, and I don't have it to verify, so I say we skip it. So do I have a motion? Either way, we can vote or.
Second. that
Okay.
motion.
So, what, when we've got the second, is that the motion to skip this section or a motion to vote on compliance or not?
To skip, wasn't it?
My only question.
What was your motion? You made the motion.
Yeah, to skip. 'cause
That's it, the skip.
The only question I had was the one relative to those parents with choice. Are they being provided transportation if they so choose?
Okay.
But I don't have enough information.
Okay, so there was a motion to skip and a second.
Second.
All in favor of skipping this section until next time? Say aye.
Right.
Aye. Opposed? Section 9, extracurricular. The school district will continue to operate under the requirements of the 1967 order, which requirements were not changed by the 94 order with respect to extracurricular activities, which mandates that no student shall be segregated or discriminated against on account of race or color in any service, activity, or program, including athletics or other extracurricular activity, and all such programs conducted by the school district shall be conducted without regard to race or color. The Equity Committee shall be responsible for monitoring participation in extracurricular activities. Recommendations were ask extracurricular clubs to provide their requirements to participate, report of student participation including racial makeup of students in each club, provide plans showing current channel for complaints of discrimination or inaccessibility for students, parents pertaining to extracurricular activities, establish resources and policies for equity with those activities. Districts should provide a channel for complaints of discrimination or inaccessibility for students, parents pertaining to extracurricular activities. Any comments regarding extracurricular section 9 section?
Mine would be if documentation that a lot of the stuff that has previously been going on, you know, has it been rectified? Has it been, some checks and balances been put in place where, from the cheerleading squad to situations at Sebastian High School with the baseball program, you know, the different little nuances of where our kids are not able to access this stuff. Has the district put in place stuff to stop it? To stop, you have to go to these special clinics in order to be a cheerleader. You have to be on traveling teams to be a part of the baseball programs. You know, pay to play, a whole bunch of stuff that eliminates African-American children from a lot of these programs, where's the documentation that we have put in place that no longer will the cheerleading programs be allowed to use tumbling clinics as a preface for getting into these programs? Where is the documentation that we won't have another incident at Sebastian or Vero Beach High School where the coach won't use traveling teams as a foundation for a kid making the program? You know, all of these things, documentation that we have set up checks and balances to stop it. You know, I've not seen that. I know that Mr. Seymour was involved in a situation with the baseball program, but if there's not something set up by the district to prohibit it in writing, and it's shown it to us that this is what we sent out to all our coaches, that you will not use these type of things to discriminate. They don't look like discrimination on their face value, but they're discriminatory. So where is the documentation that the district has put these types of checks and balances? I haven't seen it. I don't know about anybody else.
No, I have not seen any. It has been discussed. I have mentioned here numerous times cheerleading specifically. The board heard about, and I don't know if we heard about the baseball incident that you're talking about. There's a pay to play that I just don't understand that significantly affects children who cannot, children of all persuasions who might not be able to afford to play. In conversations with Mr. Seymour, I know that he has some things going on and he's checking some things out, but as far as our documentation, we have not seen anything. Mr. Seymour, would you care to say anything?
I thank you to the chair and Mr. Brown. I do understand. And starting with the survey of those students at those particular schools, I really got an idea of what needed to be accomplished in order for us to encapsulate all of the issues and concerns of our students and our parents as sports and clubs are concerned. And what we look at, too, is, of course, there are traveling squads that really take away from the average student's ability to join teams on campuses. In addition to that, one of the major concerns that our students spoke of was budget issues and having the funds necessary for them to not only participate, but sustainability to go throughout the year without having to drop out. And the things that they mentioned was finance, transportation, in addition to that, support with their academics. So as a result of budget, we've also decided to look at every middle school's budget who suffered the most and revamp their process and look at the amounts that they have and ask our finance officer to review these budgets so that we can make some recommendations, and we have made recommendations to increase the budgets. As some of the schools, like Oslo Middle School, the coaches there are stating that much of their funds have to go for kids who do not have the money for pay for play. So a lot of their funds that they do gain, they end up putting it back into their own program. So that was a major concern. When we look back, though, we have to focus on, as Mr. Brown stated, we got to look back at the coaches, too. And at no time had there been any one process to determine one coach's ability to lead a child and coach a child on a field. Now, there is a process where we do have one format to look at the certification, the education background, making sure that they meet the requirements, and if they are coaching certified, and also have been vetted. So we had volunteer coaches on sites that had not been vetted. We had about 60% of our total population that were actually certificated. After reviewing that process, we've encompassed a program that allows us to review each and every coach, which had not been done before. In addition to that, we look at the monitoring system. We did not have a system in place that looks at each and every child based on the program that they are involved in. Now, based on our focus system, coaches and schools are able to add that information to the system. By tab, we can look at and monitor students and use the disaggregated data to determine the worth of each and every program. That has never been done before. Now we can go into football, or now we can go into clubs, and we can look who's over that program, what students are in there by makeup, and determine how those students are actually added to those programs and how they're surviving in those programs and who they are.
Yes, sir. With all due respect, Mr. Seymour, thank you so much. I just wanted them to hear that you are working on something and you do have
It's a list.
have a plan. Yes, sir. Thank you. And it's not, hope people don't think it's favoritism that Mr. Seymour got to talk, but that has been an issue that's been around for a long time. And it's good to know that there is some kind of plan on the way. So we all know, if you've been here for a while, that extracurricular has been an issue. And any further comment on that?
My only concern is, that's good, but we need documentation to this committee that the school district has implemented policies and procedures to avert this. It is not here. I'm not talking about what we're gonna do, might do, or could do. Are there any policies and procedures that has been presented to the equity committee that eliminates all of this? That it'll never happen again, that somebody gonna be fired every time, even with the cheerleaders. You know, I'm looking for the
Okay.
documentation that.
Well, I'm going to call on Mr. Seymour, because he's shaking his head that he.
But I'm just saying, he's
But what
giving
was
that,
yeah,
but
I understand.
I'm talking about, if we're gonna stay in the context of this compliance committee.
And we're going to be looking for that.
Is it here?
Yes.
Is it in our presence that this documentation where the school district has done this?
I'm
Much
hearing you.
respect for Mr. Seymour, but is it a part of what we have that we can vote on to say the school district has done this and it's shown it to us in black and white?
He said he did, and when Dr. Moore said we did, I said, well, tell
Yes.
us what it was. Yes, sir, go
These
ahead.
systems are up and running now, first time ever.
Okay. All right, so he's saying that, but now to answer your question, Mr. Brown, we don't have that. We didn't get it in front of us. So I understand. Yes, sir. Okay. If you can find when you sent that, and if you send it to us ASAP, not tonight, after we're, yes, sir. Thank you. Before we go to a vote, Ms. Green.
Another thing that was discussed under us, and it's not on here, but we talked about cheerleading. Cheerleading has fundraising things that has to happen for each, and I think it was $600 or something each cheerleader had to raise, and how much was it?
It was more than that.
Yeah, so but anyway, it's inequitable when it comes to our cheerleaders of color, because they don't have, most of the time, like, they have a hard time getting one person to agree to do $200 for a golf tournament.
Oh, you mean the golf, yeah, 600.
Yeah, so.
150 per golfer.
Yeah, so like it was those things that we talked about that were a concern, like with orchestra. There was also the orchestra that there were some parents who had complained about the process and their kids being involved. And it wasn't like, okay, I'm in 10th grade and I say, hey, I want to be a part of the orchestra now. No, they had to have like been a part of it from, I want to say 5th grade. And so like those are the things that we wanted to see that that the district had heard about these concerns, had addressed them, had said, okay, with complaints, this is where we publicize to parents if you have a complaint about your child in extracurricular. This is the notice that we sent out. These are the steps that we've outlined so that they know that if your child is having issues in sports or feel like they're being alienated, like this is already out and parents are aware of it. Like, that's some of the stuff that we discussed but did not put in here.
Okay,
And you all are welcome to add it, but
all right. Thank you for it. We'll know what to be on the lookout for on the next time. When we take a look at other portions of extracurricular. So, we had the motion in a second, correct? I think? No? Okay, do we have a motion?
Are we voting on this one tonight, or are we tabling it? Because Mr. Seymour wanted to give us more information.
I think it would be fair to allow, it's already there, and, our apologies that our attention and focuses were on the other sections and were not given to these last two sections as they should have been. But I would like an opportunity to, again, look at that, the data that you have submitted, and meet again very, very soon in order to go ahead and clear those matters.
Okay,
So I will make a motion.
Mhm.
I respectfully disagree. I think we
Can I
should
make the
go on and make a motion to vote on it.
Okay, yeah, then.
Let
she
me make the motion,
Yes,
and
please
then
let
you
her
can
make her
vote either
motion, and then
way.
we'll vote, and if it, we'll have discussion and then vote if it goes up or down.
Thank you,
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Chairman. Okay, so I would like to make the motion on section, is it section 8, on the extracurricular activities to pause them for tonight and until we get further data.
Isn't that 9?
Is that 9? I'm sorry.
That's section 9, yes.
9.
That's okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so now for any discussion, and my one question is, what would, we say we don't have information on this one, what makes this section any more important than the rest of the ones that we have voted on?
Well, we just voted very similarly on the section before that, right?
We voted
On
not to do
transportation.
anything on transportation. We're not bringing that back.
Oh, so you're not going?
Just
okay,
until
so that
next
was-
time, yes.
That wasn't my understanding. My understanding is that we were going to address that, just not tonight. So was that your thinking?
That was your understanding?
I did not want
Well-
to be that to be dismissed.
Okay,
and not-
because transportation, I don't think we all agreed, we saw nothing on transportation, but I think
And
he
then
said there was
Dr.
something.
Moore said that it was included, but, and then that's when I said that we had not, it was provided, but we haven't, our focus has been elsewhere, so we have not had a chance to look at what we have been giving and all of those artifacts and information.
Okay,
So this.
so, and then his would fall up under the same thing.
Correct. That was my thinking. That was,
That was my understanding, that they were both,
It wasn't mine when I made, it was that we would, because of a lack of information, we were going to move past it. This is a whole different situation.
I'm good with that either way. My understanding was a lack of information for transportation, we were just gonna move past it.
Yeah.
But, okay, so,
so in my mind, it reads like they're the same, right?
I'm sorry, say that again, please?
It sounds like they're the same situation where we don't feel like we had the information or we missed it, so we haven't had a chance to explore it. But the district is saying it's been provided to us in both instances.
Mm-hmm.
So both instances, I thought we were saying that we were going to allow ourselves to review the information and come back and assess whether or not it met the criteria. The situations
Okay.
are the same.
All right, so,
That's-
is it, and just, is this, with this information, are we gonna be till 11 o'clock, or is it, would be, I mean, at next time, would it be half an hour with the total of transportation and extracurricular? I mean, what, do you have a time frame in mind if we were to consider this? Because we do have to have this report done by November. So we could come back a week from today, perhaps?
we did it this time, so I would have no problem.
I don't understand what you mean.
I'm saying, this meeting happened rather quickly. We just met, what,
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks.
was it 2 weeks? So, I mean, we could do that
I don't think
again.
that's enough time, though, because we still have to put everything together once we make a determination, right?
Yeah, you have to create a presentation to the board and be ready to present. Like, we met what, it was 2 times a week, basically, for 4 weeks going up into,
So when is the next
presentation.
board meeting?
and that's another thing too.
October 12th.
So it'll be the board meeting in November, or before October, right?
It has to be the first, no later than the first week of November.
And then the documentation on what Mrs. Green mentioned about the cheerleaders, that was not addressed.
And then the charter schools.
And, I mean, so in this situation, we just reopening Pandora's box.
So for us, what we did was, okay, so these are concerns that we have, that there's nothing in place for that. So for us, it's non-compliance. Like you err on the side of non-compliance, because if you say compliance, then nothing, you have to assume that nothing as of this point is going to change. For us, our strong stance was, not only do we need to see compliance, we need to see some type of sustainability prior to saying that it's compliance in this area. So like you all voted for compliance with hiring and recruitment, but you have concerns for retention. So in that instance, and you haven't looked at charter schools. So in that instance, if they decide next year that we're not hiring any more African-American teachers, you can't run back and say now, hey, wait a minute. We voted yes, but we have this. No, you voted yes, and now kind of free, unless the judge says at this point that you all can continue to monitor, which there is some language maybe for it, but then the NAACP would have to litigate for that. It wouldn't be an equity committee thing.
So, we have an option. The information is there. Ms. Davis can send it again, and we don't need anybody to talk to us because we would have seen it and see whether it addresses these instances.
When was
So
it sent?
I think we have either table it all, vote for compliance or non route now, or tomorrow they can reshoot that information that was given before. I'm sorry, hold on one.
We can bring up the extracurricular right now.
Let's bring it up.
I don't agree.
No?
We're in the midst of a compliance review, and I don't know when it was sent. I didn't receive it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's kind of like the checks in the mail. I don't know.
Are you saying because you're saying because it's being pulled up in this moment that
Yeah.
means to you, okay.
And the fact that even if that is so, what Mrs. Green brought up, I know about the cheerleaders, I know about the kid that spent $2,500 to take the soccer clinic that was supposed to play varsity, and then after they got the clinic, the little African-American girl was told she wouldn't make varsity. So there's some other issues out there. I'm saying, where were we notified in advance that these processes were set up to prevent this from happening? I don't know when it happened. I'm not questioning Mr. Seymour's integrity, but it's not before us. That's what I'm just saying. And like Ms. Green said, if we don't do it, then everybody can come back and say, well, you backed up on this or you backed up on that. Make the vote, up or down.
On
And
both
all us
areas?
have to live with it.
On both areas? Transportation and extracurricular?
Here's a question, too, and I hate to belabor anything. We're here so long now. Let's take Mr. Seymour's portion. Will it answer all of these bullets that we're talking about? So we're talking about
That's for y'all to
resources.
I think the question then, Mr. Seymour, I'm sure you understand this, but, so for example, if the varsity, that comes up a lot, do we have evidence that those barriers are removed? So for example, the golf tournament where you have to have 4 golfers for $150 each, and black students don't typically have friends or, a bunch of golfers, hanging around and parents have to pay that fee if not. So I guess what Mr. Brown is saying is there evidence that those kind of things have been remedied, or partnerships that would be willing to sponsor girls or whatever like that?
When we researched our coaches, no students that I knew of, and you yourself knew that many of our booster clubs and other organizations will fund for those individuals. All they need to know is who are they. In our middle schools, about 30% of the students there that participate in clubs and extracurricular activities did not have the funds. Coaches made sure and provided. In addition to that, many of the programs for last year, which were hurt by COVID, did not raise many funds. This year, they will have a budget, which they did not have at the time. So there are many different avenues as far as how we're going to reach sustainability, but it has to be investigated first, and by us getting that information, now we're able to provide.
Okay, for me, I'd like to know, I don't recall seeing that. When was that sent? Do you have that information?
I don't know the specific date, but we send those in the 3-month window updates. So for the first time in this update, we linked every section of the joint plan. We had action steps. Instead of just the bulleted list of action steps, we quantified them. So section 9 was 9.1, 9.2, 9.3. Just behind that, everybody provided an artifact of action. So for every one of these, we use the joint plan to guide the way of work. Every department.
So it was sent when?
I sent it probably early September, either the second week of September. But I can show you everything that we send to you is also accessible on our department website. Because I think Mrs. Pinder, that's the attachment I followed up with you because it bounced back to your it was too large for one of your email addresses that I had.
Okay, so it might still be on the phone. This is
So extracurriculars talk about, there is a screenshot of the message to our principals that we're monitoring extracurricular data and focus. There is agreement with the Parks and Rec to say that facilities we are providing access to, a legal agreement. There's all kinds of artifacts, but they're linked for the first time of not just a bulleted list, not just random artifacts, but here is the action step, here's the correlating artifact.
Okay. And I know the first meeting, I mentioned cheerleading and the issues that were there. That was in January, and we are 8 months down the road. And you're telling me that you guys bulk sent us something 3 weeks ago in September.
Specifically addressing cheerleading or open access for extracurriculars?
Extracurricular / cheerleading / yes.
So it goes
The issues
across
we're dealing with.
Yeah, it goes across all the extracurriculars, because like with lacrosse, it's extremely expensive to play lacrosse. It's like, it's those things that are the hidden fees. So I guess the question is kind of like, are those areas, like I heard Mr. Seymour say, there are booster clubs that are going to supplement parents', incomes or ability to pay. Is there evidence of like, here's how we've communicated that to parents? If you are a mom who can't afford it or dad who can't afford it, or you need transportation, here's how you access transportation for your child. Here's how you apply for a scholarship
Sure.
to cover that. So I think that's what we're getting at. Is there something specific that shows that those areas have been addressed?
Yes, through the budgets. Second, we know that rowing is a very expensive extracurricular. So now that we have a dedicated parent and community involvement person, she made the connection with Vero Beach Rowing. She had an open rowing day. She looked at the sign-in sheet. They're trying to get transportation for all of those students, trying to get scholarships, trying to get funding. So those types of artifacts, while they may not paint the entire picture, they're an artifact of action that's provided in those documents.
My question
Which
is,
in-
where's the complaint process and where is the notification process to parents?
Which in,
I mean, if the rowing club want to jump in and save the day, but where is that complaint to be documented that you had a problem in it? You had a problem in rowing where an African-American child was going to be eliminated, and the complaint was, is there a complaint process? And, you know, this is what's
Yes.
missing.
There is.
Has it been notified, sent to the parents?
Yes.
Oh, so all the parents are notified of the complaint process and everything?
Through the coaches, there is now a good cause committee that had not been formed, and the good cause committee is established with all of the athletic directors in secondary and principals of any school that may have a concern with the student. So if there's a concern that needs to be defined and determined who's, who needs the support, these individuals have voted on it, and we've had 3 cases so far, whereas individuals had problems. One student tried out for Vero Beach High School soccer. This student felt that he was discriminated against. We heard the case, and we provided this student another opportunity to try out at another school. In addition to that, we had 2 students to transfer in from Fort Pierce, had just, been moved to the county and had no place to live at the point in time. They brought the case to the Good Cause Committee. We had the coaches vote on it. They determined placement for those individuals so they could perform. So the Good Cause Committee is there for those concerns.
I mean, all this is new to me, Good Cause Committee. I just think and I'm going, and I'll be honest, Mr. Seymour, I watched the years where the athletic directors, the principals, and the coaches all corrupt. So all of a sudden, on Monday morning, I'm going to put confidence in what they do when I know kids were 18 years old in the 9th grade that had 5 Fs, a D, and an A, and was playing football at Vero Beach High School. A 19-year-old kid was in the 10th grade, and he was playing. So when you tell me the coaches in the athletic departments, unless I'm seeing documentation and all of this stuff presented in a form that can go into the courts, that I can show a judge and say, this is why we said compliant, because here's the documentation that they are holding these coaches. He's going to get, hey, if you do this, you're fired. This is the kind of stuff that we have to look at in order to be compliant. Assurances won't work. We
Brown.
need compliance.
Mr. Brown, what you just said is we have to look at it in order to be compliant. We don't have it. I haven't seen it. I truly believe Mr. Seymour has something out there. But I think we have to move on and get in step with what the court is asking for. So we had a motion and a second. And what was your motion?
It was to not dismiss or bypass this section. It was to, as it was my understanding with the previous section, to not, again, request new information or new data, but have an opportunity to look at the data that has already been submitted to us so that we can make a decision on whether there's compliance or non-compliance. And again, since we're not requesting new information, it's information that we already have.
And you received it when?
I'm saying based on, we can't say if we have it or not. Honestly, at this point, I can't sit here and say that in all of those, in all of that data,
Yes.
Remember, we were inundated with it. I can't say that it was in there or it was not. I just, again, not to request new data for us to see what is there. I don't want to bypass something if there is a possibility for compliance.
So
in
your
one
motion
or
is
two of
to
them.
have
To
another
revisit.
chance to revisit this.
Yeah, and I'm not saying to drag this out either. I mean, I'm very prepared to meet quickly, as, you know what I mean, that within reason, right, for everyone else. But again, I feel it's my responsibility to give it the attention that it needs and for us to be able to address it. Sorry, that was very, very long, but I hope you all understood or got the gist of what I was making a motion for.
Yes, okay, so it has a motion and a second.
She said that it was September 7th, that it was sent.
All in favor? Opposed? Aye.
Wait a minute, this is September 8th.
So her motion was to look at it again at the next meeting. Oh, yes, and there were, I think all in favor was, everything else was aye. There was an aye for no. Ms. Pender, what did you have?
No.
You had a no. Ms. Walker? Mr. Brown? I heard
No.
you, Mr. Brown. So I think it was 5 no. Yes. Correct. So then if we're not going to revisit,
I make a motion that we vote on compliance or non-compliance.
second.
I second that.
Thank you. All in favor of compliance with extracurricular section 9, say aye. All opposed,
Nay?
Nay.
nay. It's been a long night. Ms. Green, in the next steps, you have any, I know we have to have a presentation ready.
Yes, so now that you've voted for compliance, you now go through and discuss your recommendations for each area, if you have recommendations. And then that's what you'll present. You'll present that to both the board and NAACP. But at this point, you want to contact, well, you have Mr. Brown here on the committee. So Mr. Brown would go back to the executive committee, and you could either email the board chair, or you could work through Dr. Moore to go back to the board chair to determine an appropriate date for both, convenient for both of them. So like, go ask for like 3 dates that would work. And we did the evening because many of the executive committee members work.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have that meeting where you just present to them, but you have to come out with your recommendations.
Okay, so for additional recommendations or suggestions as to why you voted the way you did on each section, I think that would be a...
Just even insight on the data, right? So after you look at the data, so you might want to refresh yourself on the data, like after you look at the data, what you felt like you can tell them, oh, doing good in this area, like the narrative that Ms. Patterson was discussing, like you share that with them so they, they know, because even though it's a non-compliance, there are areas that has shown significant progress. So you do want to communicate that hey, we've seen significant progress in this area, but we voted non-compliance because of this or that. And then you also want to, if you haven't looked at charter school data, I urge you all to.
But that'll be after this, correct?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yes. Okay, but I mean, for right now, the notes that we took at the bottom of each of our pages, I think it would be, we can get them all together, probably send them to Ms. Davis too, so everybody can, I don't know if that's appropriate to compile them, or we bring them back at the next time, or maybe in a week.
You all don't have like a tech-friendly person on your committee? Because I did the report as we were in the meeting. Yeah.
I don't mind.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we could, I think we're almost done for the night, maybe. Unless you guys would like to sit here another hour and we go through. Huh? What'd you say?
I like Mrs. Green's recommendation that we pull all, I did a lot of writing. So I've been around
all-
her, and she would be typing, but I did a lot of writing, so my thoughts are already,
Per section, put your notes together,
Yeah.
send them to her, and then we can compile them. I can compile them, is that?
Well,
So that-
basically, you have a discussion on it, right? So like, when you come back, you already have the section up, you already have the compliance, and then each person would discuss what they had there, and you would just be in agreement with
yeah.
what you were saying, so that everyone felt like they were heard in it, rather than give them a whole lot of information. And then two, we try to finish enough time to allow the NAACP and the board to review it beforehand. So when we're going through, if they already had thought about questions, they can bring it to that meeting, or they could ask us prior to, so the meeting wouldn't be forever, because the meeting will be long if they're seeing this information for the first time.
If who's seeing the information?
If the NAACP Executive Committee and the board is seeing the information for the first time, it's long. But if you have it done at least a week before, so that they can review it, and when they come in, they can have their questions already, or have reached out to you all about their questions.
Is 2 days enough time to get it to get your notes to Ms. Davis, so we can compile? Am I on the right page? It's a long day.
I'm just saying, you all just need to have your report completed at least a week before when you have to present. That's all. They don't have to have it to you in 2 days,
Yeah,
but
'cause-
I'm just saying.
Okay.
So
be
he's
honest.
saying
Well,
to get it to Ms. Davis, because Ms. Davis
I
usually
gotta
has-
do, okay, because
We need to do it, and then come together and
So
solidify.
she's volunteered to do to type
Yeah.
it.
To
as
compile
you all-
everybody's-
While you all are in the
Yeah.
meeting,
And
yes.
then we come back and
LeBron has-
discuss.
for next meeting.
Yes.
Okay, so 1 week from today, if this place is 1 week too, that would be the 6th or 7th, 6th. We'll see if this place is available.
What's going on the sixth? Okay,
Dr. Moore, any comments?
Yes, sir, thank you. And through the chair, let me just say, this is a tough one. And the most tough thing was the comments you made towards me. And I'll be honest, I've never been so insulted in my entire 50 years of living.
Oh, okay.
Anyone who knows me knows what I'm about. And when you put your heart, your soul into this work, and you ask the organization to be in response to my heart and my soul to do this work, you're going to stand up for it. And when you see missed opportunities for the organization to share its effort in this work, a leader should stand up. So I understand your frustration. I understand you leading the chair. But if the situation's reversed, knowing you like I do, I think you would have done the exact same thing. And it has nothing to do with the color of anybody's skin, but my integrity as a leader to stand up for those who are doing this work. And each and every single one of you who speak to me, including Marshawn, do I think the work is perfect? Absolutely not. Do I think we're anywhere done? Absolutely not. Do I think 18 months in the midst of a pandemic is entitlement to complete unitary status? Absolutely not. But the depth of the conversation that could have took place, we missed out on tonight. This is not a dog and pony show for me. This is me not trying to make a step. This is me not coming to be a superhero and me come in and look what I did in 2 years. That's not who I am. So I take absolute offense to it. But I am here to change this reality. And a bulk of the conversation isn't 100%, not all of it, not reflective to the organizational change. I'm not saying it's done. I'm not going to getting licks in licks in licks from a, let me choose my words wisely, from those who don't think like individuals in this room. And I'll take it each and every single day of the week. Those that don't want to see equal access for all children. Those who are uncomfortable with a message that I am delivering to the entire organization. I have no concern or issue with what they say, but it hurts my heart when you say it, because our minds and our hearts are linked in doing this work. So if it came off in any other way as I'm trying to bulldog or take control of the meeting, not who I am, but I'm gonna stand up for my people. I'm gonna stand up for my people who are doing the work. So is there work to be done? Yes. Are we done? No.
I was going to say that I apologize to the community for my frustration and outburst. And I still say that I truly believe, as there's a God in heaven, had these been non-minorities at this table, that action would have been different. And I think we are all in for the same work. I believe you're pushing in the right direction. I think there's a lot more work to be done. But I still stand on the fact that I felt offended, belittled, and I think this committee felt offended and belittled. And I won't ask her, because she works for the district. I wouldn't put her on that spot, and I won't ask her. But 1, 2, 3, I'd like to have them comment and see how they felt when that school board of mostly honorable people are up there talking and having discussion, no matter how the other groups feel. Nobody interrupts their meeting and says, hey, send the staff home. I don't know if you've ever sent the staff home when a school board meeting was happening. So I think consciously or subconsciously, it was an extreme disrespect. And maybe there's pressure because of the district has a goal to do, and we all have it together. But I have no problem saying out front, I like you as a person. I like talking to you, interacting with you. I like the way you represent what the school district is supposed to be doing for students. But tonight was something different that I seriously doubt would have happened with another group. And somebody asked me today, how do I even come in here with this when I have another job and something else and little kids, and come here and try to do this? It's because I've seen what happens when there's no commitment. And I have to do whatever I can, hopefully like you, to fight for the students and the staff. I feel like we are, I hope, certainly hope, on the same page. And that's, I guess, about it. And I think that I would be less than a man if I didn't say what I felt. And everybody who knows me for these 50 years that I've been on this earth knows that I'm more than a man to tell you exactly the way I feel. And I don't want to be felt like this is the 1960s and you can talk to me any kind of way. So we have a work to do. I'm willing and want to do it together. And I think with all these people in this district, thank you for your hard work. Board members, thank you. But if you ask kids and principals and these colleagues of mine, ex-colleagues of mine, they know that it's in my heart to treat people fairly and looking out for any and every child. As a matter of fact, when she was talking about her child at that one school, when I was at Gifford, and Dr. Jones knows the little girl who had Down syndrome. She had red hair, and I'd go and sit with her at the lunch, at lunch, because I didn't want her to sit without any friends. So this work is important to me, and I don't want to see it. I have to make sure when we stamp unitary status on it, mindsets have changed, cultures have changed, and that people of all persuasions can step in this district, and all that matters is what's on the paper, a degree from some school or whatever your potential is, instead of the things that have mattered so far with students and kids and all of that other garbage that comes in here and tries to attack you guys at the podium. There's a reason that I come in here to support you, because I think you guys are on the right track, doing some good work, and I'm still a big supporter. But I want the same respect that any other person comes in here to get. And I'll reiterate that we had only been talking 15 minutes, and we would want to go through each and every section. We didn't even get a chance to have a full discussion. And it might have evolved into, at least not till midnight, maybe some of the back and forth discussion that we had. And I think this is a learning process. I think that we're going to learn how and where, how deep to go and where and which areas to go and to look at charter schools. None of it's perfect. This needs to be tweaked. It's not perfect. The sustainability policy has to be tweaked. All of this has to be tweaked, and recommendations to the judge. And I think we all need to be on the same page with that. I want to say a special thank you to Dr. Jones and if any board members are watching, and the staff. Sorry you had to leave. But remember, too, that we have a pressure and a timeline to get this underway, and we're learning and open for communication to each other. And lastly, I know some people wondering why you're here, Ms. Green, but you already know the process, and I thank you for showing up, providing input. Now, do I think everything you say is 100% right? Not all the time, but you're smart as heck, and I appreciate you. Thank you for coming to help this committee. And we're still in the same work. Dr. Moore, I still respect you and the staff and the board.
Can I say
Yes.
something?
Oh, she's had her hand up first. I'll gladly come to you. Yes.
So Dr. Moore, you talk about your heart. So I want to say why I came. Before Mr. Brown even reached out to me, one night at a school board meeting, you said that you're going for unitary status in January. There's an entire community that got in an uproar calling me about that. And I just want to be clear with anyone who is watching, anybody in this room, the African-American community wants the district to have unitary status, but not without an equitable and a positive learning environment for both students and teachers. And to hear a January go for unitary status without that environment being in place, they felt disrespected, they felt disregarded, and they questioned if you actually care about that happening, this environment happening, or more about being able to have that as an accolade on your resume. That's what came to me with that. Secondly, with the sustainability policy, they also feel like that is putting the cart before the horse, because what has been created to sustain? Like, we get it that you all are saying once you get unitary status, but where is the unitary status? Like, what is being put in place to sustain in order to make a sustainability policy of value? So those were the things that came from the community, and that's why I keep getting called and I keep explaining to these people I have a job. I live somewhere else now. This is an hour and a half drive for me. You know, while I do care about the students, you know, in this district, and I do care about the work and I do care about the people, and I come, you know, because of that. But also I just want you to be mindful of the community that championed you before you got here and really have a high expectation for the work that you're doing. And they saw you as an ally, and now they are in a frenzy. Like, they've been asking me to have a town hall meeting, which I have not had because I don't live here anymore, but possibly will. So I just wanted to say that, because those were the concerns, the fact that unitary status is being discussed without actually putting things in place to make sure that kids are successful, the achievement gap going away, you know, having a culture change for teachers to thrive in.
Alrighty, and I'm definitely not going to be long, but I feel that, like, my heart is literally pounding out of my chest right now, because I am, you said, two words that stood out to me when you were speaking were mindset and respect. You said that you would not ask myself or Ms. Walker to say anything in regards to what you feel happened.
I wouldn't want to put you on the
No,
spot.
but I'm just saying, just because I'm employed by the school district does not mean that I do not have my own opinion. I say what I feel is right. That man, I respect him, but I'm not afraid to express my opinion. Am I, Dr. Moore? We've had conversations. So I'm not a puppet, I'm not a cheerleader, I'm here in this seat because I have volunteered to do a work. I am not a puppet, neither is Ms. Walker, so please, please do not offend me. I am extremely offended. I'm not just saying, I'm just saying it has been said and that just struck a chord. I'm not saying that that's what you meant. I know that it was probably coming from a good place, I can assume that. But please, do not assume that because I work for the school district that my opinions are fueled because I don't want to upset this person, that guy sitting there in that chair. No, ma'am, no, sir, that is not who I am.
Okay.
So let that be on record. Let it be heard. I don't know if Ms. Walker feels the same, but that's the way I feel. She can amen in the back. But don't. Let that be the last time that is said or insinuated. And on that note, I'm ready to go home.
Well,
You know, Dr. Moore, I hope that you go back and look at this video and you will see, self-explain to yourself, your attitude. It was demonstrative, it was insulting, it was a whole bunch of things. I'm 68 years old. I've been in this fight since I was 11 years old. I love this community, white, black, purple, and green. Mrs. Berenberg can tell you, her husband and I coach Little League together. Little white boys, little black boys. But I'm not going to sit here, and I keep emphasizing 53 years of atrocities, civil rights violations, and everybody want us to do cum laude and go quietly and be passive. We've been passive too long. We want instant gratification. We don't want to have to wait and wait and wait. We don't want assurances. We don't want statistical findings. We want to see impact. We want to see action. We want to see this district come where it should have been. And I'm not going to sit here. If I drop dead tomorrow, I will have done my best. I followed Mr. Hart, who gave all of it, heart attacks and everything. I'm not going to have one. But I care about this. The NAACP, we care about this. I try to be able to work. These two women are put in a precarious predicament because they work for the school board. From day one, and if Mrs. DeAgresta was here, this committee, Dr. Warrior is listening in, it was supposed to be we didn't want it, but then it was supposed to be a committee of 3. But I had an attitude in the judge's chamber down in Miami, and they said, well, Mr. Brown, what'll make you happy? I said, make it a committee of 5. I just did it out of arrogance. Because we no longer want to be begging and pleading with the school district to do what is right. We don't want assurances, Dr. Moore. We don't want assurances. We want validation of compliance. We want to be able to see that you are doing the work that you say you are doing. We want our children to be educated. We want our children not to be in the 10th grade and never took algebra. We want our black teachers not to be afraid of their jobs. I asked you something one day, Dr. Moore, and you never answered me. I said, Dr. Moore, which one of your APs, administrators, or principals making $70,000, $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 a year going to disagree with you for having a black child in this district? Remember I asked you that?
A number of times.
That is fear and intimidation because they got a better job. A lot of them want to do right. Me and this lady here, she know I respect her, but we going to war. And she know it's not personal. Mashawn and I, we family, but we going to war. But it's not personal. We going to work this thing. Dr. Warrior and I are like twins. We fight, but we fight for these children. We don't fight to look good. We don't fight to win the fight. We fight to say, give me your best, Mashawn. Prove to me, Mashawn, what you telling me going to work. Not that I'm denying you that, Mashawn, but prove to me that what you are telling me going to benefit all children.
Chris and I used to do that, remember?
You know, and this is how we fight. We fight because our children, just think of it, Dr. Moore, 53 years of atrocities, 53 years of civil rights violations imposed on the black community. It's just like with COVID. Last weekend, 14 bodies in Gifford. 12 of them was COVID. That's impactful on a small community like ours. What you are doing or not doing, it resonates. And I told you this, you sit at the 40,000-foot level. Don't think the 1,000-foot level doing everything you tell them to do. And don't think that there's nuances and stuff that's going on. We want to be respected. And when Mashawn mentioned it, I got them same phone calls. Remember what that? And then when Eric and Ms. Hoffa went on Greg Stewart radio station, my phone went off the hook. Tony Brown, what is this that they're going to get unitary status in January? You know what my response was? I guess I'm meatloaf. I'm irrelevant. I don't mean nothing because the school district has decided that it's going to get unitary status. When people was telling me that Dr. Shafter said that her goal was to get unitary status in January. I said, oh my God, ain't nobody talking to me. But the NAACP is supposed to lay down, roll over, and go along? This is compliance. We gonna commend you for what you did do, but we are not satisfied that it is going enough, and wait, and have patience, and this and that. Just think about it, 53 years of civil rights violations. See, stop the joint plan, stop the desegregation order. Say these people have suffered civil rights violations for 53 years. Now, Dr. Moore, and I'm gonna shut up, put that on you if you had to do it, or your family. For 53 years being told you were irrelevant, you were nothing, you didn't mean nothing, what you thought didn't matter. How your children got educated was irrelevant. What type of education they got was suspect, according to my whim. Just put yourself, you may not be able to empathize with us, but understand we got 53 years of credible baggage that we are carrying, and we will not go quietly into the night.
And generations of people not being able to read. I have a cousin as old as 65 that can't read, they're illiterate. And then I have some as young as 19, just graduated, got a job at McDonald's, got fired, can't read, can't do the math at the register. So that's like personal
Yes,
to us, like that's what's happening. Graduated from Vero Beach High School.
yes.
Well,
Mr. Brown, just for clarification, no disrespect, but I did not go on Mr. Stewart's show and say that we would reach unitary
Oh, I
status.
didn't say you said it.
Okay, just for clarity.
Oh, I didn't say you said it.
No problem.
Okay.
So I'm sitting here and I'm wondering, like, do I even say anything? I'm gonna truly,
You
to
got
be
it.
honest, that I will say that I appreciate that you do feel like you have the privilege to say whatever you want, whenever you want, and that that's respected and valued. But I think it's important to note that that's not the case for everyone. And I think that's the heart that, and I appreciated it. I appreciated being taken off the table. If I want to speak, I'll speak. But in the same way that you didn't want him to speak for you, I'm asking you not to speak for me because I don't feel that same privilege to be able to say whatever I want to say and have no consequences.
And I respect that. And as I said, you can amen it or not, but again, when he mentioned all of us, that's why I included you in that statement. But again, that's how you feel. We have those different views, and I respect that.
Didn't come from a bad place.
And I know, but it's been said.
I-
And so it struck a chord, so I
All
felt the
right.
need to address it, but thank you.
Peace and love to all of you. Dr. Jones,
Kill.
you have anything to say? Thank you so much, Dr. Jones. You're here. Yes, ma'am.
You need help.
Mr. Seymour, can you give?
I'm speaking as an individual, not for the board, but I've had a rough 24 hours, so
Mhm.
We love you, Doc.
and some of you know why, but I listened to everybody tonight, and I do know, I think one of the best things said was when Marjan said, when you give the recommendations, be specific on what we need to do. Because if you're not, we can go back 68 years. Mr. Brown, you and I have talked about that joint plan many times. It wasn't written well. It was not written well. Whoever put in one teacher per school, what were they thinking? I didn't sign it, he didn't sign it. Mr. Brown, you did sign it, and I know there was issues there, but don't keep going back there. There are issues that we need to work on. And all the data and information that is sent to you, it's a lot of work. And I know a lot of you have other things to do. And yes, I do a lot other than a board member, but this is something we just need to work on as a community, as a district. And I will tell you this is the hardest I've ever seen a staff work when it comes to this plan. We're not there, I got it. But each and every day, I will hear, and I'm here probably 3 days a week, I'm hearing on what we're trying to do and what we need to accomplish. And I know if it's not there in writing, I understand the concerns where we need to go. But I'm on that good cause committee, and I'm on that extracurricular committee, and we are making the moves. And I'll tell you one thing, I wouldn't allow Pay to participate as a principal, and I was asked every year to do it the last 5 years because we were getting low on funding. I didn't allow it because I knew it would set up a barrier. I'm worried about kids who won't try out because they don't have the money. You know what I mean? And it's hard. It's hard. And I was raised in poverty, so I know. So those are the things we have to look at, but do not ever give up hope on what we need to accomplish. And I told you, I own that sustainability policy. I was here one night and I said to him, we've got to do it because you're right. When we're finished, we've hired these African-American teachers, we're done. We don't want to be done. We want to continue to move on. So keep that as the environment of what we're trying to do. I've gone through 10 superintendents. I survived them. I picked up the phone every week and said, I'm sorry, because I knew something I did was wrong, and they'll tell you that. But this is the man who came in and said, this is what we need to do. Unitary status, I pray we get it someday, but I want it to be where it's embedded in what we do on a regular basis. On a regular basis. So okay, we finish this, check, we finish that. Nobody has that intent. And if you think that, I'll apologize. I'll apologize. It's just something we want to accomplish. And the biggest thing on all of this is the student achievement. Everything else is part of that, but are our students going to be ready to go on to their next journey in life? And that's what we want. Don't give up. Continue to move forward. When we're doing things well, please let us know, because these people, some are still here, they're working their tails off, and we want to be successful. I emailed Ms. Dampier, I said, have Dr. Moore set up that meeting with the NAACP. We want to move forward. And thank you, Mr. Browning, for coming to the last board, I can't even remember, 2 days ago, yes. and just representing, because I knew that wasn't going to go in 30 days. I knew people would want to have input. I didn't expect for it to be perfect. Right. But come in and tell us what we need to do, you know? Don't let us go blindsided on that. I mean, the board took it off the table, which I agreed with. I didn't mean to push it. I just want it to be ready. I just want it to be ready. But thank you for all the time you're giving.
Thank you so much. I think we've got the perfect team. Thank you, everybody, for what you're doing. Even though we just had a big fight, we got a perfect team. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for all the work, Dr. Moore, Mr. Seymour, Dr. Shafty, rest of the staff, NAACP, you guys around the table. Ms. Green, thank you for traveling your 2 hours to come and help out. And if we get those recommendations in soon, and we'll be communicating here shortly. I think we want to check the availability, if we can, Dr. Shafty, for a week from today so we can get something done. And have a great night. Call this meeting to a close.